Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, Robert Meyer Burnett, and I invite you to watch and listen to the Designing Hollywood podcast, brought to you by Martika Ibarra and the great, legendary Hollywood costume designer, Marilyn Vance. I am afforded the wonderful opportunity of co-hosting the show. If you are interested in the magic of Hollywood, the design of Hollywood, the clothes of Hollywood, watch the Designing Hollywood podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts from, or find the video version on YouTube. That's right, the Designing Hollywood podcast. Why would you ever want to miss it, especially if you love the movies?
Tango Shalom is now available on all VOD
major platforms. I think we messed that up.
Video on demand, or as they say in the trade, VOD.
VOD. Tango Shalom is now available on all VOD platforms,
which means
video on demand.
Look how you know. You must be a high school graduate.
I'm a college graduate.
Really?
Yes.
I got an honorary degree from Hofstra. Did you get an honorary degree?
No, I got a degree.
Oh, well, I got honorary. You know, I'm in the Jewish Museum.
What for?
What do you mean? As a famous Jew in the Bronx. I'm in the famous...
I'm in the Prospect Park in the Stones.
How big is the stone?
Hello, and welcome to Midnight Metal. Imagination connoisseurs, once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, Robert Meyer Burnett, and this is Midnight Metal, episode 71. You know, it's the week before Christmas. I hope you guys have got all your shopping done and all that. Tonight, we actually have a guest who's got a little metal in them, and he used to be very mysterious. Mystery creative, they called him. No one knew who he was. We're going to talk about that. He just finished his first short film, which he's going to tell you about. He's done all kinds of things. He's worked in computer games. He's worked in rock and roll music videos, metal videos. He looks metal. His name is Rantz Hoseley. And I'm going to read his bio before I bring him on. And he sent me this, so I'm sure it's all accurate. I'm not making this up. Rantz began his career in the 80s. With his work as a storyboard artist on rock videos for a number of bands, including Aerosmith and our beloved Scorpions. Love Drive, baby. If you didn't get that album in the 4th grade, I don't even want to know you. While attending Washington State University in the height of the grunge explosion, he served as the art director and entertainment editor for the Daily Evergreen, interviewing a number of seminal bands as they emerged from the bar scene to impact on a global level. I wonder if he ever talked to Candlebox. I lived around the corner from Barty Martin, who was in that band. In 1994, he entered the world of software and video game development initially as the lead artist for Philips Media's real-time 3D initiative before going on to work as an art director on Aladdin, the Fate of Agrabah for Disney Interactive, and as the creative director of, I know nothing about this, Star Trek Tactical Assault and Master of Orion 3 for Quicksilver Software, working professionally as an editor in comics. He's a writer and editor since '87. He's adapted Robert Kiyosaki's bestseller Rich Dad Poor Dad into a graphic novel for Little Brown Hachette and won the Eisner and Harvey Awards in 2009 for Comic Book Tattoo, his anthology based on 51 songs by Tori Amos. That's pretty cool. We got to talk about that. In 2018, while serving as the managing editor for Heavy Metal magazine, he adapted Nikki Sixx's memoir, The Heroin Diaries, into a graphic novel. Did I tell you he was metal. Come on now. His career in graphic comics continues as the senior editor for Z2 Comics, where he's edited dozens of books based on musical artists ranging from The Doors and Dio to Blondie and Joan Jett. Dieter Bastian is sitting there in Saarbrücken, Deutschland. I'm telling you, he's hyperventilating right now. His recent work in film and television includes co-writing a feature for 20th Century Fox based on Kevin G. Anderson's novel Ill Wind, as well as directing the music videos for 6 a.m.'s new version of their hit, Life is Beautiful, and Motley Crue's Ride with the Devil. His 2021 short film, Die, is his live-action directorial debut. He is currently in pre-production on And Then, a feature based on his experiences of growing up in the 1980s with a serial killer as his assistant scoutmaster. Please welcome. Put your hands together. Give me some devil horns, Mr. Rantz Hoseley. Welcome to Midnight Metal. Rantz, let me ask you a question, sir. We have to ask everyone this. Do you feel fucking metal tonight, dude? Are you feeling fucking metal?
I am metal.
Fuck yeah. That's what we want to hear. So I've known about you for a long time. We kind of bounced around. You were mystery creative, and that's all I knew you as. Like, you were truly mystery creative on the interwebs.
Yeah. It was it was the whole mystery Hollywood event horizon thing. Which was like 8 years ago now, 7 years ago.
Right.
Was I would say a well-intentioned fiasco. And something that could only happen, at a certain specific time and place within the internet. It had kind of reached critical mass for the internet, specifically Twitter and social media, to where people started thinking about branding in terms of like what your messaging is. And
right.
There were a lot of us that were involved in various aspects of Hollywood and entertainment, whether the music industry, whether TV, whether film, video games, that were kind of fundamentally frustrated with a lot of the ass-hattery that was present.
I love that.
At the corporate level.
I'm incorporating ass-hattery. I've never quite used the word. I love using the word ass-hat, but ass-hattery, that's fantastic.
Exactly. So it was the father of this was a mystery exec who purportedly was, along with mystery VP, the exec at some major studio, and that led a bunch of us to adopt mystery personas and to talk about things that they saw as being problematic, and not just to bitch about it, but also to say, hey, if we genuinely give a fuck about this form, if we care about storytelling, and we want it to be as rich and vibrant as the films and TV shows and books and comics and everything that we grew up with, these are some things that need to change. So I it was well intentioned, but it's at a certain point, there were certain members that started to believe their own hype
right.
in there, and B, it was revealed that mystery exec and mystery VP were 100% not either of those things.
Right.
It was a person who was a aspiring writer who had worked as an assistant for a studio VP, and when all of that came out, everyone just kind of most of us felt idiotic at that point, carrying on. And at this point, all of Mystery Hollywood had met in real life.
Right.
We became friends, and Rachel Pryor, who has worked with Edgar Wright in a million films, with his last three companies, was Mystery British exec. And she and I became friends with because of that. Mystery Grip revealed himself to be Calvin Starnes, and he's a WGA writer. So many of us are still friends and colleagues now because of that. And I would like to think that it serves some purpose other than just relieving boredom.
Right. Sure.
But yeah.
Now I've got to ask you. You went to Wazoo. I went to I
did.
grew up. Did you grow up in Washington State?
I did. I grew up on the border of the Washington-Idaho border in Clarkston, Washington, which is right across the river from Lewiston, Idaho.
Yeah.
Washington-Idaho border, as you know, has all of these sister cities all
Yeah.
down the line. So you have Coeur d'Alene and Spokane, you have Pullman and Moscow, and Lewiston and Clarkston is at the very bottom of Washington, right near the Oregon border. So that's where I grew up. And after my interesting experience in going to art school right after graduating high school in Los Angeles, and then deciding fuck that, things are going horribly awry. And decided, it's a friend of mine was like, so why did you decide to leave LA? You've had all the, you were working with Aerosmith, you're, working on Scorpions videos, Whitesnake and all this stuff. And so why did you leave? And I was like, well, because I probably would have overdosed. Growing up as a kid that was fundamentally insecure, and growing up in a town that was 7,000 people,
Sure.
and then moving to a dorm right next to MacArthur Park in the mid '80s.
Wow.
Which at the point was at that point was a DMZ. The only way that you could kind of, at least for me, that I could white knuckle through it was to be high and drunk most of the time. And not just like slightly altered, like completely screamingly out of my mind.
Right.
High. So there were a couple of incidents that I was like, if I stay here and I don't like get my shit together, I may end up being one of those tragic, statistics. So so I went back to Washington and fully embraced doing comics. And did stories that I both wrote and drew for independent comics companies, including like Caliber and Innovation and
Right.
First and stuff, and then decided, okay, well, I need to have something stable. So I'll go back to school and I'll get my degree and I'll be a teacher, and then I could do whatever the fuck I want to in terms of my art and my writing. And I'll have a stable, real job that has a retirement plan and all that stuff. And so I went to WSU because I was too late to register at Western, which is where I wanted to go. And I wasn't going to go to UW. That was not going to happen.
I was at Evergreen.
I know you were.
And that was also kind of a crazy place, but it was around.
Crazy hippie central.
Yeah, I was there in 85 to 88, and then I moved to California. Then I moved to LA. But that was a crazy, the emerging, like Nirvana would come and play at Evergreen, and no one knew. I think it was before they recorded Bleach. And like some girl in one of my classes managed them at the time, and they were in Aberdeen, which is down the road. You'd go to take the exit out, and you just go down to Aberdeen. I used to shoot music videos down in Aberdeen because you could drive out onto the beach and nobody cared, so you could shoot. Yeah. It was great, but it was, I was going to ask you about that time. I've always thought that the grunge music scene, the way it developed. I always thought it was funny that like flannel became a staple of grunge because, growing up, I grew up on Mercer Island, but people who had bands, the reason everybody wore flannel is because they practiced in their garage, and the garage door was open, and flannel lets you it's cold. You wear flannel, but you can still move. You could still play.
That's why you had long johns on under cut-off jean shorts and camo shorts, because it had nothing to do with fashion. It was entirely utilitarian.
It was entirely utilitarian, and it cracked me up watching And like I said, like Candlebox was a later band in that scene, but like Barty Martin did grow up. He was on my block, growing up, and it was like in Seattle, everybody knew somebody who was in a band that like semi made it or made it big.
Yeah,
And
Candlebox would come over to WSU when before they got signed to Madonna's Maverick label, and like had their little clear red cassette demo that they were selling, and this girl that I was dating at the time was like, "Oh, you've got to see these guys! You've got to see these guys!" And so we'd like all piled into the Cavern, which was WSU's like place du jour of whatever touring band would play, and like 120 people could jam into there, but it's like had amazing experiences, and Candlebox was I was like, of course they're gonna get signed, because like they've got everything polished down. They've they've learned all of the lessons from that everyone else stumbled at. So
well, I about that time, I mean, obviously a lot of great music was coming out at that time, and I was at 1990. I was working at Warner Brothers when Cameron Crowe made Singles,
right, and
it was really interesting that I saw dailies, and I'm like, oh my God, they're shooting this like in the U District. I couldn't believe it. Places that I'd been to, I mean, I knew all those locations. It actually really was shot in Seattle, but it was interesting to me because when that movie came out, and I think it came out in 90, 91, and it felt like grunge was already over. Even though it wasn't, but it felt that way, like coming from Seattle. And I'm just curious. I mean, to me, the grunge rock scene, I kind of had leaving in '88, I just missed the wave crashing on the shores when it was really popular. Pearl Jam's 10 hadn't come out yet. Nevermind hadn't come out yet, I don't think. And there was Mother Love Bone and bands like that were really local Seattle bands that even they hadn't broken on any kind of national level. And what was it like? I mean, at that time, did the grunge rock, I guess, call it a movement? Was it exciting to you covering it as a journalist, and did you like the music?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: is that like the music scene, even before like national attention came in. Like I've been really blessed that when I moved down to LA, it was the mid '80s. I came down the first time at the summer of '84, and which was just crazy because Los Angeles metal was exploding.
Yeah. By the way, I was in LA that summer too. That was the 42nd World Science Fiction Convention in Anaheim. I took a road trip.
That I did not know.
Yeah.
But it was so and then going back to go to art school in '86, it was like and I was in a speed metal band of all things, and we got 86 from the Troubadour because our very alcoholic guitarist smashed a vodka bottle over the lead band that we were opening for's head because he was getting upset because we were a speed metal band. So but like it was fantastic being in that mix. Like I try and explain to the youngsters these days what it was like being in Los Angeles in the mid '80s, because like you would start at like Crescent Heights, at Coconut Teaser. And you'd walk down Sunset all the way to where like Soho House is now, and there were 13 clubs.
That was the Strip.
Yep. And
I mean, it still is. It's just not as fun.
Yeah, but the difference was like there were times you had to walk in the street because there were so many people packed on the sidewalks.
Yeah.
And the kinetic energy of that was so fantastic and so inspiring and so, it just made you feel like a world of possibilities. And that was, I mean, it was true even off of that. Like Scream, which was at the Park Plaza Hotel right next to MacArthur Park, was like kitty corner from the school. So we'd wander over there at like midnight and watch Jane's Addiction play their club sets before they ever got signed. Or we'd go to the Cat House and see, this band called Guns N' Roses play, and it was that kind of stuff that you were just like, even before like everyone else figured it out, you could feel there was so much that was bubbling there, and a huge part of that was that you had all these different influences coming in, and so you ended up with bands like the Chili Peppers, you ended up with bands like Jane's Addiction, you ended up with Fishbone, and you also ended up with bands like Motley Crue and Rat, and all of these different, and then the collision of Guns N' Roses and all of these things, and it was a similar thing in the Northwest, but it's like the irony is that it's like it gets categorized as grunge, which is a specific drop D kind of, chug 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 kind of, rhythm to things. But there were so many like amazing bands that never broke huge.
Right.
But, like the fantastic thing was like you could go to Pioneer Square, like the grunge band I was in during that time, Hat Trick. Like we recorded a EP on the night before New Year's Eve, like on the 29th and on the 30th. So on New Year's Eve, we went and celebrated by going to Pioneer Square, and it's like for $15, you got into 9 clubs.
You got in
every club had 3 bands playing, and it's all walking distance. And
for those of you who don't know what Rantz is talking about, Pioneer Square is in downtown Seattle, and it was right next to what was the Kingdome, and it was like a pass or something, and you paid $15, and it was a cover for all of the clubs. And there were clubs like, what was it, the Phoenix Underground, and
yep, exactly,
and
Pioneer Square Saloon, Phoenix Underground,
and it was, there was the Crocodile Club too that was on another. It was across downtown.
And you had the off ramp, which was down lower, and
in Belltown, and it was a really great place though. It was so much fun, like it was such a. It's hard to explain to people what it was like going out at night because, like you said, the promise that anything could happen, and anything did happen. And it's
and it's like and you didn't have cell phones.
Yeah.
So it was, and the thing that was amazing is like you would go there with a couple of friends, you'd lose each other
right
in the middle of the mayhem.
Yeah.
You'd find each other, you'd find other people.
Right.
Like it was this, and like I met so many artists that I am still friends with. I met so many musicians I am still friends with in nights like that, and I think that like the thing that I mourn the most about Los Angeles now and Seattle now is that the fiscal dynamics don't allow that kind of thing to happen because it's too expensive for a young poor kid straight out of high school to like move to the city with a sack full of dreams and $100 and be able to find a part-time job that'll let them break through on that.
I mean, having grown up in Seattle, I it's unrecognizable.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a few places like the 5 Points or some taverns and a few places left, but most of it's all upscale, and nobody really wants that anymore. Everybody wants to go to more. I mean, Pioneer Square, those bars were grungy. I mean, they weren't totally grungy, but they really were.
Yeah, but like you're talking about the Kingdome, and you're talking about like down by Pike Street and that. It's like this is it's like these are tourist icons, right? Pike Street Market is a tourist icon, but it didn't change the fact that at nighttime, it's like it was a little sketch.
It was really sketch. Yeah, it was. And what was great, you go up the street. 3rd Avenue was sketchy. I used to go to Time Travelers on 2nd Avenue, which is like it was like a record store, comic book store. And it was a great time though. And I just it weirds me out that if you had cell phones and social media, it would not have happened that way, because the funny thing about there is that your eyes were always up. You were looking at what's going on. You had to be, and not only that, you're out, you're meeting girls. You're not that was and meeting people, and everyone was there to have a good time, and there was no, I mean, it could get belligerent, but it wasn't even when I moved to LA, I moved here in '88, and like you said, the Sunset Strip was still popping. It was great. I mean, I'd go to Gazzari's, the Rainbow, and then go see random clubs. The first girl I ever dated was the lead singer of an all-girl metal band. I mean, it was just like you had to hang out on the Strip because it was just fucking fun, man. I mean,
well, and here's the thing too, is that like a lot of people don't realize that it's like people used to cruise Sunset in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And they finally outlawed it. But like it was this huge activity aside from just wandering the clubs. Like it was this big like social event where like everyone from all of the surrounding suburbs, and you see a little bit like, for instance, in Valley Girl.
Yep.
Like there's the bit where Nicolas Cage's characters taking the Valley Girl, they're like cruising the Strip and they're like doing the patter back and forth to people on the streets and stuff. But like that was part of the adventure. That was part of the life of it, and that's just not. It's just kind of boring now.
Well, I mean, there was a whole. It was very funny because there was a metal culture that existed 24/7. That wasn't just band practice or going to a club or something. It was the people and the way they lived and what you did and the jobs people had. I mean, Singles did a pretty good job of conveying what it was like in Seattle. People were baristas. They had 8, like Matt Dillon's character has like 8 jobs in that movie, and he's delivering flowers, and then he's working at a coffee shop, and then he's doing it. I mean, people were really like that, and they're go printing flyers for their band and putting them up. I mean, it was a really weird time, but it was a great time. And what was interesting was everybody was trying to do something, no matter what it was. I mean, and that culture, people had to have merch design. So there were artists doing T-shirts, and it was, and then that's why I started making music videos. I was shooting music videos on 16 millimeter for bands that could sometimes pay for the film we bought. Sometimes they couldn't, and it was a great, and I don't mean to be one of those people going, well, back in the day, but things have changed.
It's just the state of play that's changed. I mean, here's the thing too, and it's like I think that there are aspects of the internet that are phenomenal. But here's also the reality of it is that if you were someone who desired attention, right? Who needed external validation that you matter in this world, right?
Right.
It's prove it, you son of a bitch. It's like woodshed until your chops are sharp enough and until your skills are honed, and that you can create a film that makes people go, fuck, who's that? Or that you can write a book that the publishers go, shit, here's your 6-figure advance. Or that you can be, even on a smaller level, that you can be a journalist for like the Rocket or the LA Weekly,
right?
That produces something that you're just like, everyone's they can't wait to read your thing. That you're a band that everyone can't wait until your next show's up. Like you had to prove that you were worth listening to, and the flip of the internet is that like people have no discernment between the relative value of two people saying something, right? Because it's like you haven't had to, and God knows I'm guilty of this as much as anyone. It's like, you don't have to really refine what you say. You don't have to woodshed it. You don't have to workshop it. You don't have to sit there and like think about the ramifications of it, because it's much too easy to just fucking say something. And the nature of social media is that you can say something antagonistic, and it just becomes this, people mistake, engagement for actual, conversation or an actual exchange of ideas that's of worth or whatever. So
another thing too is like, I look at TikTok. I like just jumping into the TikTok rabbit hole, and there's I
actually like TikTok a lot because I see a lot of people being incredibly creative there.
That's what I was going to say. There's so much talent, but it's so fleeting. Like I'll see videos going, wow, that person has an incredible sensibility. They understand how to tell a story in a short period of time. There's real talent there, but it's so fleeting. It comes and goes, and there's so much content that real talented people, I feel, they have really something to offer, and yet, and some develop great followings, but how do you monetize that and turn that into a voice for culture when it's just part of it?
And how does that become a career? How do you leverage that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I mean, this is like anyone who wants to have more than a flash in the pan event. If you want to do this for life, if you want to create for life, it's constantly like, how does this leverage me to this, leverage to this, on and on and on and on to the next thing. Because if you're not thinking like that, you are 100% at the whims of an external force.
Right.
Whether that's the market, whether that's studios, whether that is publishers, whatever, you are 100%. It's out of your control.
Yep.
And I don't see so much. The thing that's I would be terrified of TikTok as if I was trying to make a career or leverage on that, because it's so based on external metrics. Like it's so based on, does this engage? Does this go viral? And do I go viral on a consistent basis? And how does that monetize? How does that convert? It's like, Jesus Christ. I'm not envious of how that whole thing is going to play out for them.
No, I'm not. And plus, I think the fun of it's gone too, in that you're doing it basically on your own. You're uploading the stuff to the platform, but there is no Sunset Strip to go to. It's not like there's a place where all the TikTokers gather to show their wares or play their wares, and you meet people. And it and also there was what I loved about it is it taught you people skills. Like you had to, if you were going to go into these arenas and you were going to go into the club scene and you wanted to meet people, it was a very social place, and people were open to meeting just about anybody because you never knew who you were going to meet. So it wasn't, people were not so standoffish or snobby about it. You talk to anybody, and anybody would pretty much talk to you if you had a good sort of a pitter patter, if you had the gift of gab, and it made it a lot more. It was just a lot more engaging. Yeah. I was in Houston a couple years ago, and I was at an event, and I was on my own for the evening. So I went out to this. I was staying right by the Johnson Space Center, and so I went out to the Gulf Coast, and there was some club there. And I was like the oldest dude in this club, but I was there, and there was all these beautiful kids. But they're all looking at their phones. Like they're all wandering, and people were not, I mean, there were little groups of people talking, but people weren't engaging en masse. And it was such a weird, like I hadn't gone into like a total, just a club, and it was a big club in a long time. And the music was great, but people were
no one dances.
No
one. It's a huge frustration, because it's like, I love to dance. I love live music. And even pre-COVID, like, Sawtooth, my biggest complaint is, like, you go to a club in LA and you get, it's like being in a fucking junior high dance. Like everyone's on the perimeter, there'll be a few people in the middle dancing, but it's like, I remember going to clubs in LA in the 80s and 90s, like going to Glam Slam when it was downtown.
Oh man, I love the old Vertigo.
and it was packed. And it was packed. And here's the thing: it's like, it was an incredibly diverse crowd, right? You had R&B fans, you had metal fans, you had people from the city, you had people from the suburbs, you had people from Orange County, and it was this, and like you said, it was the thing of, yes.
Glam Slam, for you people listening, was Prince's Club.
LA in the 80s and 90s was absolutely not a safe place, but
no.
The flip of that was, when you were in clubs, when you were out, for the most part, people, you were talking about how, like, people were cool or more open because no one knew who you could be, but it was also like, the axiom of start shit get hit could be fatal. So no one wanted to start shit, because it's like, you never knew if someone was packing or someone had a knife, or and it was just like, all right, Let's just all be cool. And I think you ended up with some crowds and some exposure to musical styles, artistic styles, and different individuals and different groups and different subsets that were much more varied than I see now.
Absolutely. Like I used to like to go to South Central to clubs. Like I was like me and my buddy were like the only white dudes, someplace. Or I'd go to East Los Angeles to hear some great Spanish music, like Spanish punk. There was some really interesting stuff, and what was interesting was, even though I went to some sketchy places, they could tell that if you offered them your respect, and people would embrace you. I found I never felt I was in some sketchy situations, but because I was always like I'm a people person, right? I'm always like, hey, show me this, man. What's going on here? Tell me what's up. And and people were, I found for the most part, you might be with some hard motherfuckers with gats in their jeans, man. But if you were cool about it, and you were open to them, and were people would take and buy you a drink. Hey man, what are you doing down here? Why are you here? And he'd say, well, I want to come down and see this. I heard this. I read about them. And then LA Weekly, I came down to see this band. Like, you came down to our hood to see some band? I go, yeah. And then they were like, that's cool. And they would buy you drinks, and then they'd introduce you to your friends, and you go to some house party, and suddenly you're eating something off someone's barbecue at like 6 a.m. The sun's coming up, and you're like, that was a pretty good night.
And the thing is, it's like, as a writer, like those adventures, those experiences, like I am confident that if I never leave my house for the rest of my life, I will have material to write if I live to be 100, because the experiences were so rich, and I feel like as a result, I can speak with veracity when I write about different types of people, because I've had that lived experience with them, and I, again, like I look at a lot of scripts from younger writers now, and I see patterns. I see patterns and I see formulas. I don't see like the compulsion of like, I have to tell this.
Right.
I have to tell it. And remove the quality for a second, like whether it's good writing or whether it's competent or whether it's marketable or any of that. It's just the idea of, I, as a writer and as a filmmaker and as a comic creator and as a comic editor, like I want to be surprised. I want stories that make me go, fuck, I didn't see that coming.
Right.
Or wow, that's a really interesting point of view that I haven't seen before in a story. And God knows there are so many like it's like, well, every story's been told. No, they haven't, because we're talking about billions of people, and if we can't have narratives that actually reflect that experience. I mean, for me, growing up in small town redneck America, my gateway to a bigger world and my realization at a young age that the world was a much bigger thing was through film, and seeing foreign films, films that took place in urban environments, and I was like going, oh, it isn't just this. No matter what everyone around me says, this isn't the only existence that there is. So I can define that. I can figure out that looks interesting. What can I learn from this? And I still find that with film, it's like I would rather the Fran Leibowiz's thing, Pretend It's a City.
Oh, right.
Netflix, right? She put it really well. She said, we're in this culture now. She's like, I read books to be exposed to a different point of view, to a new avenue into the world, and there's a large swath of people now that only want to have themselves reflected in the media that they consume.
100%.
And I think that's an incredible fucking shame, because for all of the talk of diversity and inclusion and representation, like if all we're looking to do is to just hold a mirror up to the audience, like that's, and it's this singular point of view thing, rather than it's this idea that we are incredibly rich and faceted human beings. Our lives, no one is all good, no one is all bad, even horrific people, which is why people fall in love with horrific people,
Right.
because they fall in love with those good things, those tender things within them. And that's part of what is both the beauty and the tragedy of life. And if we're just getting into this, like, well, I only want to see something that completely reinforces my point of view right now, it's like, Jesus fucking Christ, come on now.
Yeah, dude, I don't, it's weird. I never thought people that would be advocating for diversity and inclusion would be ideological fascists. Because
it is a very weird thing, because it's like I was very that line, right, that the progressive branch, the liberal branch, however you want to look at it, like, again, growing up in very white trash redneck America, it was like, oh, those liberals just, they want Orwellian, da da da, and I was just like, you're just so full of fucking shit, and because it was ludicrous, and and yet I'm like looking at certain trends and just like going, you realize you're proving them right.
Oh no,
and you're self-defeating in this process. But
no, it's terrifying. I mean, I used to think that I was a classical liberal, a left-leaning classical liberal, and now I'm like, it's terrifying. And I'm like, all of you people need to go party some more, because
it's honestly, it's one of the reasons why most everything that I'm writing now, from a film and TV standpoint, and or from a comic book standpoint, in the case of the Judas Priest graphic novel, is either a far future science fiction thing, or it is a story that is firmly rooted 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Because I can tell the story that I want without the ass hattery of,
right.
of like, well, it doesn't do this, and it's like going, but every story doesn't need to do that. A story should just be a story should succeed or fail on its own merits, and I would argue that originality and it being compelling and interesting is the most important thing. And it's one of the reasons why I've like 5 years ago, I just decided, like, I can't be pursuing studio work anymore, in terms of like trying to write the next the next big franchise thing.
I don't think you. I don't actually think you can, because unless you're some proven, the studio filmmaking is essentially exploiting IP now. There's no like, I think back to some of my favorite movies that all that jazz. One of my favorite films in the world was a co-production of 20th Century Fox and Columbia.
Yeah.
Those movies would never, all of the movies that were so impactful and meaningful to me growing up would never be made today.
Yeah.
They would never, even something like, I go back and think about what I think with studio tentpoles like the Jack Ryan franchise, beginning with Hunt for Red October, and then you had Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger, and then Sum of All Fears when Ben Affleck came in. Those were all Tom Clancy books. They're now being made for Tom Clancy. Jack Ryan's moved to TV.
Yeah.
And there are no mid-level, even David Fincher's Gone Girl, that was based on a big bestseller that I really liked. I read that book in one sitting. I liked the movie. That's a total, a mid-level studio programmer that was really, really good, like a Fatal Attraction or whatever. And those are the bread and butter of the studios.
Yeah.
Those days are gone.
Yeah, no, it's and the thing for me was just like, we did the adaptation of Illwind, which I thought was really good. I thought that it had two set pieces that we'd never seen before in an action science fiction film. That would make the audience just go, "What the fuck? What?" Like there's one scene that I'm not going to talk about because I hope to God that at some
And
point
this is
I
the
can
adaptation of the
put it
Kevin J. Anderson
in. Yeah,
book.
exactly.
Now, who co-writes the continuation of the Dune books with Brian Herbert.
Right. And also co-wrote the adaptation of Rush's last album,
Right.
Clockwork Angels. So,
Yes.
So Fox was really happy with it. They were happy with it enough that they kept us on to do not just the first write, but the next two drafts and the polish. So
they like your writing.
Yeah. So they like the writing, but we were told flat out, it's like, because 6 months goes by and we're like, well, what's happening? And it's like going, well, by the estimates, this is about a $185 million film, because it's huge. Like it opens with an oil tanker crashing into the bottom side of the Golden Gate Bridge and doing this full, like there's a helicopter rescue thing where it's dropping off as the tanker plunges into San Francisco Bay, and it's just oil's going everywhere, and it catches on fire, and it's horrible, and that's like the opening, and it just gets crazier from there. So it's like we tried to like do how do you make an adventure, an action adventure film with the kind of kinetic energy that we would see in things like the Poseidon Adventure or those classic big disaster films, right?
Yeah.
But it was like, it's like this is 185 to 200 million. So unless we get someone named Cruise, or we get someone named Ridley to direct it, or something like that, that's not going to happen. And Ridley was busy with Martian, so that wasn't happening. And so the option lapsed, and it didn't happen. And I was just like, I'm not, and to be clear, like Fox was fantastic to work with. They paid on time. They paid well. But like I didn't get into this to. Let's be clear. I want to make money, but I didn't get into this just to make money. I got into this because I love film and because I want to tell stories.
Right there with you.
And so the thing that kept coming up in general meetings was the fact that I had grown up with a assistant scoutmaster who was a serial killer.
So people are clear, for real.
For real.
This is a real story. Your assistant scoutmaster was a serial killer.
Yep.
There's nothing more metal than that, I got to tell you.
It is.
It's pretty fucking metal, Rantz.
Well, here's the thing. So, you can watch. There's on Vimeo. There's a documentary about this called Confluence. It's available for free. It's a great documentary. But also, like Brian Fuller and I went to high school together. Brian was 1 year behind me in high school, and
who's one of my favorite people in the world. He's been on this channel. I've interviewed him.
Yep. But Brian and I have talked a lot about how growing up in that environment, where you go from this Norman Rockwell white picket fence bucolic wonderland to all of a sudden body parts in black plastic bags are showing up in the river. And how that completely fucks with your perceptions of the world, and how it screws with how the messaging from parents, because no one wants to admit this is there's a beast in our neighborhood. No one wants to admit there's evil on the streets. So it must be a wanderer. It must be a homeless person coming through. It must be something.
Nope.
So in general meetings, the discussion was, why don't you write a script about that? And it took 3 years to figure out what the angle was, because he's never been arrested. Everyone knows who it is.
You're kidding. He's still out there?
He's still out there. He's now a retired postman in North Carolina. Because here's the thing. The early 80s, being on the border of Washington, Idaho, and Oregon, having 5 counties all within 20 miles of each other. It's a perfect killing ground. Because this is pre-FBI centralized database.
Right.
This is a whole bunch of local law enforcement that Uncle Cletus, got little Timmy the sheriff's job kind of thing.
Right.
They have no forensic, training. They have no homicide training, really.
But then let me ask you this. If everyone knows this guy was the serial killer, come on.
Because there's not enough physical evidence he's been brought in multiple times.
Oh, okay.
But there's not enough physical evidence to nail him. And the current DA of Nez Perce County has said, they would like nothing more than to get him. But they very much believe that it's like we get one swipe at this. We get one swing. And that's
Do they know how many people he's killed?
There's at least 7 that we know of, and there's a lot of people that disappear in rural America.
Right.
There's a reason. Also, David Lynch grew up in that area as well. So, grew up in the northern western parts of Montana and Spokane, and he knew that there's plenty of shit that happens in the Northwest. So my problem was that like, okay, there's no clean ending to this, right? As a story, and also I think that you should be able to write about anything. I don't think that writers or artists or whatever have a responsibility to not go dark places or anything like that. But I also feel like, especially in genre entertainment, there's been this overwhelming tendency to replace action porn instead of actually dealing with characters. Like you compare, like, for instance, Jaws, or Close Encounters, or even the original Star Wars, to most sci-fi action adventure films now, right? And the ones we get now are pretty much by the beat. It's like, here's the turn, here's the secondary conflict. We're coming, like, all of this stuff is very, very pattern, very market driven.
Yeah, I mean it's pattern, it's market driven, and it's not driven by the characters are no longer real characters. They're stock characters.
Right.
They're pre-programmed characters, and you just plug them in.
It's right, and we've gotten to this point where there's a large mistaking for an explosion is in lieu of substance.
Well, I mean, you look at, you brought up Jaws. I mean, you look at Hooper, Quint, and Brody. Those are real dudes. Yeah. Hooper's a rich kid who's also an oceanographer. And Quint's the salty sea dog, and they feel real. They're not characters, and the actors were given what actors do. You give them a little bit of leash so they can create the character on their own. That's what they're not playing some archetype. I feel that. Right. Especially, look, as much as I like Dwayne Johnson as a person, I mean, I've never met him personally, but I like his presence. I like his social media presence. None of his films feel at all authentic. He'll never be in a movie that I believe in.
Yeah, it's all, and I say this as someone who loves animation, who loves cartoons, but they are cartoons made flesh. It's like,
right, absolutely.
There's no actual there's no actual humanity delved into any of this stuff. So
no. Well, that's why people are turning to like manga and anime, and there's a lot more going on. Why is Korean media suddenly, why does Squid Game become one of the biggest things Netflix has ever had on? Because there's a conviction there, the creators of these things. Or if you've watched, I don't know if you've seen Hellbound yet, another Korean series. It's pretty great, and it's wacky, and it's out there, and yet it's dealing with some really great
sort of issues and concepts, and they would never have made that in America because nobody would understand what it was. They're like, well, this doesn't fit into an easy box. You're talking about religious cults and belief and creatures from hell. What the hell? What is all this?
Yeah. So for me with And Then, which is the serial killer thing, it was like, and here's the thing, it's like I know the families of the people who were killed. It's like there's still, my mom still lives up there. It's like this, they are friends of the family. I can't, I cannot be disrespectful to the memory of their daughters.
Right.
And so part of it, like the linchpin for me came from watching a couple of films that gave me a different kind of approach to it. And it was like, and it became a coming of age story about dealing with small town toxic patterns.
Like My Friend Dahmer.
Well, here's the thing. It's like I'd actually like My Friend Dahmer's is, I would say, on the individual level.
Right.
And what this is dealing with is, because when I started doing research on the town, like I grew up there. I spent 20 some years of my life off and on in there. And as far as I knew, there was one family of color, and that was the one Chinese family who owned the one Chinese restaurant in town. And I found out that, like, in doing this research, that, like, oh no, for the first 40 years of the town's existence, a third of the population was Chinese, and they had a thriving Chinatown that had the best real estate in the area, and a group of folks set it on fire, and the white-run fire brigade just sat and watched it burn until it started to threaten the white buildings. And and there were so many things like that through the late 1800s through until the 40s, where it was just like, oh shit, this is not it became really clear, like, a situation like this is not an aberration. It's a pattern that's built into in the very makeup of it, where you don't talk about a problem, where you don't talk about things that are systemic and wrong. And you try and paper over it, and try and pretend everything's fine. So it became about that on both an individual level for this kid growing up in the face of this, and in terms of the town and the city and how it transformed it. And, so yeah, that was. But like the thing for me with it is just, I also, like, I wanted to create something and write something that, like, was something that I wanted to see. And again, going back to what I was saying, like, show me something that I haven't seen before, rather than, like, it gets maddening for me to be able to predict, oh, okay, and here's where this happens, and then
dude, I know.
It's like,
by the way, we have a super chat that came in from Your Muslim Uncle. Says, I'm loving this, and loving that you guys love dancing, and that you want to see what the youngins are doing. Hail, brothers. Well, I've often thought, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I think that there's a contingent of us as we're aging. Like, it's hard to grapple with my age because all of my interests have basically stayed the same my whole life. Like, I didn't just develop a taste to collect Renaissance art. I'm like, no, man, I want action figures and movie posters and movies and horror novels. I heard I saw somebody say that Ray Garton is in the chat. I don't know if he is. I don't know if you read any. Ray Garton was one of the splatterpunk authors I discovered in the late 80s because I think I read a review of his book Live Girls in Fangoria. Okay. And Fangoria magazine, the first thing that I would turn to is their Nightmare Library when they would review horror novels, because the best horror, I loved horror movies, but the best horror in the 80s, especially the late 80s from 86 on, were books.
Absolutely.
The splatterpunk authors, Skip Inspector, Ray Garton, Clive Barker's Books of Blood were revelation. And they were so transgressive and weird, and especially Clive Barker.
I mean, he didn't. That's why we live in this world where now everybody, all these activists are screaming and yelling, and I'm like, I was reading stories about all kinds of transgressive sexuality or identities in Clive Barker's Books of Blood.
Even like, even if you look at like, Anne Rice's first run of, vampire books.
Oh yeah, Interview,
like
Lestat, and Queen of the Damned, the first three.
Yeah. It's like, reading those in junior high school were things that you were just like, I don't think I'm supposed to be reading this.
No,
but I'm reading this.
Yeah, but now we live in this world where I feel like all of this has been so infantilized, and I had friends of every ilk in the 80s and 90s, and it was cool. I mean, and I hung out with all kinds of people, and now it's almost like everybody wants to segregate themselves and join. It's so weird and tribal, and I'm like, it didn't used to be. It was all about individuality back in the day, yo.
It's the thing that, the irony is like, we were talking about subcultures of like metal and like goths and things like that, like in the 80s and 90s, and it's like, if you went to a club and you saw someone, wearing a Bauhaus shirt that had eyeliner on and they had, the Aquanet hair going on, it's like, you're like, oh, I got you. You're in my tribe.
Yep.
Because and that was it, because those were the signals. Like that was how. And here's the thing too. It's like you couldn't buy this shit just in the mall. You couldn't go on the.
There was no Hot Topic back then, Rantz.
No. You had to either make it yourself, and I'll say this, like that was true of hair and it was true of fashion. Like you had people like really putting effort into their look and like figuring out what is my specific look that signals to people like, here's what I'm about, but at the same time doesn't look like everyone else's thing. And the irony is that I see a lot of this kind of cookie cutter styling happening in terms of things like hair, in terms of things like the fact that like so many people have like bright colored hair at this point, and there's this situation where like Satu went to a hairstylist and she's got tats, and she's got the shaved head, and it's in a faux hawk up and all this stuff, and so the assumption is like, oh, you're into punk or metal or goth or like this. And it's like, no, she's into smooth jazz and R&B, because for her it's just fashion. It isn't this is who I am.
Right.
And I think the difference is that it's like, again, like we were talking about, like getting the attention of people. You had to woodshed things. You had to work it. You had to figure it out, and you had to resolve it before you presented it out to the world. And there's so many shells that can now be put on like avatars, that there's this overwhelming tendency, I think, to try and define that through labels rather than defining yourself through who you are, through how you present yourself to the world, through your work, through all of that stuff. And it just feels, it feels like we're poorer for it. And it's well intentioned, but it's there's an interview on Bustle Magazine's site. Secret History and the rise on TikTok of dark academia fetish.
Wait. Oh, this is right up my alley.
Yeah.
The
dark academia.
What website is this on?
It's on Bustle. If you do Bustle Donna Tartt Dark Academia, you'll find the article.
Okay. First of all, I worship at the altar of the Secret History.
It's such a fucking great book.
It's one of my favorite books I've ever read. And, I read that one time Gwyneth Paltrow had the rights to... I mean, to me, that's the ultimate David Fincher movie.
Well, here's the thing.
I'm like, bro...
Is like with all of the modern mystery stuff that Nicole Kidman is doing with Hulu and HBO, like I don't understand why. And David Kelly's like adapting all these books. It's like I don't understand why he is not doing that with Secret History for HBO or Hulu or something like that. Because as a miniseries, like, oh my God, please, it's brilliant and again transgressive and shocking and
Oh wait, I'm going to put this. I found the article. I'm going to put this.
Yeah.
Everybody should read this. I haven't even read this, but just because you're talking about it, I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't believe it's very funny because there are two books that I do not understand. I was talking to a very big producer the other day about one of these books, and he was saying one of them's Flicker. I don't know if you know the book Flicker,
No.
but you have to read Flicker. Just
Okay.
get Flicker. It's Theodore Roszak wrote it. Just read Flicker. Flicker's like the secret history of movies. For those of you who've never heard or read The Secret History by Donna Tartt, read The Secret History. It'll change your life. It really is that good.
It's an incredible book.
It's an incredible book, and it's one of those books where it's so funny because I don't even talk to people about books anymore. And I talk so much on my channel about movies and things, and I mean, this room is. I have thousands of books in this room, and I mean, I'm looking around. I'm surrounded by books, and it's frustrating to know that. I mean, sometimes you read like Gillian Flynn when she wrote Gone Girl. I read Gone Girl in a one sitting. Like, someone's got to make this into a movie, and it was just a fun pot boiler or whatever. And I'm like, but it's great. It was awesome. It had a great twist in it, and I was stoked when David Fincher made it. And I thought, like, unlike his adaptation of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which I like the Swedish version better, not just because I want to be a contrarian. I just thought they told the story better in Sweden, and I don't think the story worked as well, even though Fincher's version was great. But I thought Fincher nailed Gone Girl. But I would love it. Like, I don't think there's very few directors that exist on this planet today that could make The Secret History and have it work. We've lost our directors that are both great cineasts and also great intellectuals that know how to do something like that.
Yeah, I think that honestly, like the line I'm a huge Claire Denis fan, and I think that like I always say that I would love to see The Secret History made it into a film, and I would love to see Margaret Atwood's Cat's Eye made into a film.
Yep, I have that too.
But it's absolutely one of those things. It's like it would take someone like Claire Denis to do it, because it requires. I'll say this: Villeneuve doing Dune and pulling it off is again proof that the impossible is possible.
Yes.
But it requires a director with the lexicon to do so, and also the authorial vision to be able to figure out how this translates into something that brings the interiority of that book onto the screen in a way that isn't filled with exposition and yabber.
Right. I mean, look, when I watched, I don't know if you liked it, but I love The Queen's Gambit. I thought
it was fantastic.
Fantastic. Scott Frank was I'm a huge Walter Tevis fan who wrote that book. He also wrote The Hustler and The Color of Money. He wrote Man Who Fell to Earth, and he wrote a science fiction novel that came out in 1980 called Mockingbird that I would love to see adapted. And I heard a great apocryphal story. I don't know if this is true, but I heard that a female, I don't know who it was, but a female Hollywood producer was mugged or held up like in Beverly Hills or something. And she was turning over her money, and she was snarky, and she's like, all right, I'm giving you what I have. What are you going to give me in return? And this mugger pulled out this copy of this Walter Tevis novel, Mockingbird, and gave it to her. And like, apparently she was the first person to option that book. I don't know if that's true. But I love that story. But then I'm like, lady,
Why didn't you? And I'm sure I could go find out. I could find out who represents the Walter Tevis estate and find out whoever first optioned the book and ask that person and find out if it's true. But I'm like, there's so many I don't understand. It's very frustrating to know, because I do think Gwyneth Paltrow was the first person to option.
Yeah, I remember hearing that, but like, and that was a long time ago. That was like late 90s, if memory serves.
Yeah, and this book Flicker, Darren Aronofsky optioned it in the mid-aughts. Now, this producer that I brought it up to, he's like, do you know if it's still under option? I'm like, no, but even that book, you could give that book to every studio exec in town right now. They're like, why would you want to make this?
Yeah.
Like, they wouldn't know why. There's, and it's frustrating. And I don't mean to like bag on Ivy League educated business people who are now running studios. That's fine. But, I mean, now in the streaming world, that's how you do Secret History. Do it as a limited series. And Scott Frank can do it. Come on, Scott.
Yeah.
What's up? Although he's doing The Sparrow, I think, next, which is another great book.
I would love so much for that to get adapted in any form. It's so good.
Well, it's funny because The Goldfinch failed. The movie.
Yeah, but I mean, the Goldfinch should have never been a film. I mean, again,
I know.
It's a beautiful book, but
it is a beautiful book.
But it's this huge sprawling story of how innocence dies. And once it dies, can you regain it? Can you regain the thing that made you see possibility in the world? And it's beautiful and complex and all this, and it's like you can't reduce that down to 2 hours and have, you can't have the Cliff Notes version of that, because even the Cliff Notes version, you're going to lose all of these relationships that build up and that dissolve and die. Both figuratively and literally.
And unfortunately, people are like, oh, well, Donna Tartt's only written 3 novels, and one of them was adapted, and it's The Goldfinch. So why would we look at any of her other work? And that's that thinking. And it's like, my God, The Secret History is one of my favorite books I've ever read.
Yeah.
If you're
and it's also one of those things that like it's such a the irony of all of these TikTok fans being, discovering the world of dark academia. And the reason I brought this up in the first place, and here's a good segue to close out the point, is that article goes into, the woman who's being interviewed is talking about why dark academia has this surge. And she says that, like, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it's the idea that when you and I were growing up, when the generation right after us was growing up, it was the idea that the future was always full of a beautiful liberal possibility, right?
Right.
That like if you were gay and growing up in the 50s, there was the possibility that maybe one day you'd be able to love the person that you loved and not have your life risked for it. That if you were a person of color, there would be greater opportunities if you were in the 50s, and the future was where possibility existed, for communication, for rights, for all of these things, and yet, and she says it in some aspect of like well-intentioned, side effects of this, while all of these things are, and she's almost there in realizing it, because she's like, but it's a much better world, but it doesn't change the fact that people are, looking to the past as this place where there was license, where you could actually be yourself, where you could actually express yourself without worrying that you were going to get destroyed by a peer group or castigated or cast out by friends, because you said something that was verboten, or you did something that was, the fault du jour of the week, and and there's a bit of exaggeration to that, but not much, like on the path that things are going on, and it's and I think that it's interesting that from, again, it's like the I think it was Zach Stentz was talking about how he was talking about stories from the past that were based in the past, and it's like going, maybe the people don't want to admit this, but maybe, just maybe, it's more interesting to have stories about people who aren't perfect.
Well, right.
Yeah.
or people that aren't exactly like you, the audience.
Right, exactly.
And it's interesting because I obviously I haven't read this article about dark academia, but it references the Once Upon a Time at Bennington College podcast, which I've been loving. So for those of you out there who don't know, in addition to the splatterpunk movement, there was also the enfant terrible literary people like Jay McInerney and Bret Easton Ellis and all of the writers of it was so interesting because in pop culture, the 80s pop culture was so fascinating because it was music, it was movies, it was fashion, it was literary, and if you were a goth or something, you were into all of it. Yeah. And even I was more of a preppy guy, and then more of a new romantic vibe later. But I was interested in all of pop culture, and the pop culture of the 80s was wildly diverse. Like I remember going to see The Hunger when it came out in '83, and there it opens with Peter Murphy and David J. and Daniel, Bauhaus singing Bela Lugosi's "Dead," which to me is the goth Stairway to Heaven. Yeah. And I was blown away that this movie opens, but they portrayed, this goth club was all adults. It wasn't young people with high hair. It was
and adults with immaculate outfits.
My God. The fashion, they're wearing thousands and thousands of dollars. The fashion, and Anne Magnuson is in Anne Magnuson, who goes from being a woman who's killed at the beginning of in The Hunger to saying sheer fucking hubris in the first season of Picard. I'm like, God damn. I want to call her up and go, Anne, yo, what happened? You were a performance artist in New York, and now you're saying sheer fucking hubris to Jean-Luc Picard. That's where we've come as a culture, man. But when I saw that, and then all the different aesthetics, and it's David Bowie and Catherine Deneuve, I'm like, Jesus Christ. And I don't even think my mind was blown because I was listening, to In a Flat Field. I'm starting to collect 4AD. I'm going to get everything on this record label, whether it's Cocteau Twins or This Mortal Coil or when they put out Mars and Pump Up the Volume. I was a total 4AD disciple, and I have to have everything on this record label. And then there was Network and Skinny Puppies on Network out of Canada. I got to get that too, and it was a big deal. Absolutely. Nowadays, it's
but it's interesting because it's like, the not to be like in my day.
Well, no, but I didn't mean to be that way. But
no. But it's like, so I just
even though that's true,
it is true. But I just finished reading a autobiography by the artist Eric Fischel, who was one of my favorite artists in my art school years, and he and Robert Longo completely rewired me in high school. Like I came across articles of their stuff in Art News and was just like, oh my God, like this is all of the kinetic narrative nature of comic books as fine art without ripping up Lichtenstein or anything like that. So.
Did you see the Robert Longo exhibit at LACMA when it was here in, I want to say 89 or 90?
Yes.
I won't be too self-serving, but I have a very erotic story that happened in LACMA while I was at that exhibit with the person I was with.
Well,
And of course,
it's a natural reaction to Robert Longo.
I mean, for those of you who don't know who Robert Longo was, Robert Longo directed New Order's True Faith video, and he also directed the cyberpunk film Johnny Mnemonic.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he did these great in the 80s, these great huge canvases of people falling, which in the wake of 9/11 his work took on particular chilling significance later. But that exhibit at LACMA, that was the first date I ever went on at LACMA, and it was a great date. I don't know why I remember that, but I'm a huge Robert Longo fan. Not so much of Johnny Mnemonic, but I think you might have frozen, Rantz. Hang on. If you can hear me, and you might want to try logging off and coming back on again. Just click off and come back. Davi, I hope I get this right. Davi de Oliveira Pinheiro. I don't know if that's right. I'm trying. I would love to see an adaptation of Flicker. A book that could have great life as a miniseries is The Savage. I know The Savage Detectives, but I have not read it. The Savage Detectives by Chilean author Roberto Bolaño. Bolaño? I will definitely pick that up. We lost Rantz. Rantz, come back. As Prince would say, come back, Rantz. Come back here. Hopefully, I'm going to disconnect you, Rantz. Come back. Rantz, relink. I'll send you an email. I'm going to send you an email, and hopefully you will come back. Like Uhura said in Mirror Mirror, you didn't come back. Let me see. Rantz, come back. I hope I haven't lost you. Yes, you do. Yes. Rejoin. Hopefully he'll come back. Reconnect to previous session. Let's see. There you go. You're back. I'll bring you back. This is like the most fun conversation I've had all week. So now I did want to touch on the fact that you have now directed your first short film.
Yeah. So the short film is a direct response from. So I wrote the feature about the serial killer assistant scoutmaster. And
first of all, what's it called?
And then.
No, I mean the short.
Oh, the short is called Die. I wrote the feature about the serial killer assistant scoutmaster at the end of 2019, and took it around, and some very cool art branches of major studios were very interested in it, and they said, this is awesome. Yes, you absolutely need to direct it, but you haven't directed live action before. And also, why the fuck do you want to shoot it in Idaho? And are you sure we can't shoot this in like Northern California or in Vancouver or something? And also you want to like, there's all kinds of kids in this. Why are we? And so there were all these concerns about whether or not this was possible. So at the end of 2019, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do a short film that I direct that is shot in Idaho, and that isn't an outtake or a proof of concept, but it's a short film that stands alone, that's dealing with the same kinds of themes, it's dealing with the same kind of narrative style, and that it's dealing with the same kind of production issues. So shooting in rural Idaho with no infrastructure, shooting with a largely kid-based cast. And so I did a Kickstarter, got it fully funded.
Yeah, it was very successful. Well done on the Kickstarter.
Yeah. So then the plan was, okay, we're going to shoot this at the end of March, beginning of April. And at the first week of March in 2020, all of a sudden the DP and I are like looking at each other going, I think that this might be a little, and at the time we had no idea what that meant.
Right.
But the COVID numbers were exploding in Washington. Like in a week, we went from 200 cases to 500 cases to 2,000 cases to 4,000 cases.
Yeah, and it
within a
really
5-day
started
span.
there. That was the
Yeah.
beginning of the COVID epidemic, our home state.
It was Washington and New York, and I just felt like, okay, and none of us knew like if it was a fatal thing really at this point, because it was so fresh, but it was also the thing of like, this just didn't feel safe, and I'm very much the kind of person that, like, if I have people working for me, I want to be responsible. I want them to be safe and to be taken care of and all that. So we're like, okay, well, we'll postpone it until the summer. We'll shoot in the summer. Well, we did shoot in the summer. We didn't say what year we would shoot. So in August of this last year, with vaccinations and everything in place and safety protocols, we took everyone up there.
It was exciting, I have to say, to see, watching your progress, that you did this, and it was exciting to see when you announced that you were commencing photography. I was like, I'm very excited for you. I think that was amazing.
Well, I gotta say, man, it's like it was very exciting, and I love the process. I was telling a friend of mine that I've been making art, telling stories, working on projects in a creative, professional aspect for 35 years at this point. And at some point in any project, there's always the moment where you feel like the wheels are going to come off, right? Where you're just, where something starts going wrong, and you're just like, oh, the wheels are going to fucking come off. Hold together, baby. Hear me, hold. The whole Han Solo moment goes through your head every time. But like, I gotta say, like, we had our G&E truck break down the night after the first day of shooting.
Oh man!
And in nowhere fucking Idaho.
Explain what the G&E truck is.
So the G&E truck is the grip and electric truck. So basically, all the lights, all of the rigging, all of the cables, everything we need in order to actually make it so we can shoot a film is in this truck. And the truck, we finished on our first location, and it went well. And then we have to be up to Moscow, Idaho, which is 45 miles away. And we have to be up there by 6 a.m. And that's fine, because it's 9 o'clock at night. We're okay. And we're packing up. The G&E truck is on its way up to Moscow. And in 5 minutes later, we get our key grip text and says, the truck, I think, is broken down. It won't start. And so, we had this whole fiasco of, like, at midnight, renting a U-Haul, swapping out all of the G&E stuff to a U-Haul, driving it up, and and dealing with all of that on by the way, an independent short film budget, which is no money.
Right.
But
you did it, man.
Yeah, and
late
all that
night,
said,
you did it.
I never, like, it's the first project in my life where I never had that feeling like, oh, the wheels are going to come off. The wheels are going to come off. Like, I had a fantastic crew. I had a fantastic cast. And I really felt like, oh, this is kind of what I'm built for. Like, this is my jam. I can do this. Like,
well, you sent me a couple of pictures from the film, and I think, like, here's one. Like, I don't even know anything about this movie other than what you told me, but here's a few images from the movie. Obviously, I love the way this looks. I love the way that it's shot. I love the aspect ratio. This looks beautiful, and I'm curious if you can, without, like, I don't want it to be spoiled, I know, but can you tell us a little bit about what the film is? And by the way, kudos to getting. I mean, I think it looks, at least what you've sent me, it looks beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, the advantage we had is because of the delay. The DP and I had a lot of time to talk about the shots and color and everything, and like everything. So the film is basically the moment in a kid's life in 1976 when his life fundamentally changes because he learns about subtext and the idea that something can have a hidden meaning, and hence that you can't always trust what parents tell you, or you can't trust what adults say. You can't trust what people say, because they might say something and mean something else altogether. You can't take things at face value anymore. So that something can't be just cool because it's a spaceship, that it has a
Right.
meaning, while sometimes a spaceship is just a spaceship, sometimes a spaceship is something more. So, and for me, like, part of the things that I'm interested in exploring from a storytelling standpoint is the idea that we talk about in a narrative standpoint, when someone has a traumatic experience in a coming of age film, it's always this big thing, right? It's this it's someone in the family has died, or there's a divorce, or something horrible happened. There's a tragic illness, and the reality to me that I think is a much more universal experience is like there are these mnemonic moments that you have as a child where your point of view completely changes, and those things ring so true with you that things can trigger those things as you get older. You can remember those memories, even where you, for instance, might not remember with crystal clarity the specifics of your marriage, your wedding, right? You can remember the moment that your dad stepped on a nail in the backyard when he was trying to repair a shed. You can remember how the light through the leaves turned into a stained glass window. You can remember these things because part of it is like you're experiencing these things for the first time. And part of it is also like there's an emotional openness as a child as you experience something that you haven't put up the boundaries, you haven't put up the filters. Like you take it all on, good and bad. And I think that's one of those things that as we get older, we still remember those things with such power and such strength. And so those moments, those life-changing moments that you have as a kid, are often these seemingly inconsequential small things. And what I really wanted to do was to try and bring that across to the audience of having this, of having that sense of memory for the audience that and bringing it to life through this kid's story. So so a huge part of that was because it takes place in 1976. It was looking at it was spending a lot of time looking at films from 19.
Why 1976? Was that because it means something to you?
It's the bicentennial.
Got it. Okay.
And it's all, since one of the themes of the story is about patterns and patterns of response, and how we, unless we are conscious of it, it's very easy to just repeat patterns that we're taught. And our fathers react to a situation in a certain way because that's how their fathers reacted to a situation. And even if you're consciously resisting that, that stuff gets pretty hardwired in. So the fact that we always wanted to have it in the 70s, but then when I was doing location scouting and prop scouting, I needed vintage beer cans from the Northwest, because there's this scene where they're drinking and
Rainier and Olympia.
Well, and I found 1976 bicentennial Lucky Lager cans.
Wow.
That were still in the box, and they have the pop tops and all of that. So that kind of was like, oh well, it's 1976, and a whole bunch of stuff just fell into place there.
Did you try drinking that?
No, the cans were empty, unfortunately.
Oh, they were. I thought you found real beer from 1976. Because I would have to have tried it. I would have had to have tried it.
I couldn't afford to get sick.
Yeah, that's true.
I had too much on stakes there. But then also it was the idea that from a theme standpoint, it was the idea of the discussion that, for a company, I'm a huge musical fan. And I love Hamilton, and I love the line from Hamilton at the beginning where it's like he's questioning, a nation that's born out of violence, will this be cursed to repeat this? Will it start a cycle of endless violence? No matter how good the intention is, like is something that's born of violence, inherently setting that pattern in place. So, I liked that layer of it being about the bicentennial and about, because at the same time we were still trying to extricate ourselves from Vietnam.
Sure.
So and there was the fact that I was able to get the Playboy from 1976 with Jimmy Carter's interview on it, which pretty much ended his chance of ever getting reelected, because he admitted, which this is going to sound hysterical to the younger members of the audience here, but Carter in a Playboy interview admitted as president that he had experienced lust in his heart, which was the most horrific thing a president could ever say. But because he was being honest. He was being honest.
I did not have sex with that woman.
Yes, exactly.
I did not.
Exactly. So I thought that was an interesting thing as well, because there's a bit of commentary in that. And also, 1976 had all of this really great iconography and propaganda that was everywhere in the schools. So since half the film takes place in an elementary school, we've got all of this great imagery. We were able to do the hang in there baby cat, like, in the classroom. And so the only piece of 1976 ephemera that I couldn't get was the Kiss Bicentennial Valley Forge poster, where where Peter Criss has the bloody bandana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, congratulations on doing that and crowdfunding it. So where can people see Die?
Well, right now we're out to festivals, which means that eventually we will have a online streaming link.
Yep.
But under the conditions of being eligible for festivals, we can't do that until the festivals have had their piece of the pie.
Yeah, no, of course. And it's funny because I was telling you before we started the stream that having gone through the festival circuit last year, we started to find out around this time, and we were in festivals for 7 or 8 months, and it was great. It was a great experience. I mean, having first made your first film and going to festivals, there's nothing better than that. Talking to other filmmakers, and I mean, I don't know, now festivals are all virtual, but
yeah, it's going to be interesting, because it's like we thought, like, oh, okay, well, all the festivals are back to normal. This will be great, and then stuff started closing down this weekend.
I know. I was just it sucks. It's just
there's a money bet going on in the writers groups on Twitter right now of when Sundance announces that it's going to go to virtual only, because
I mean, it's so weird that we're back to this same. I mean, the funny thing is no one wants to be here. No one wants this. I mean, it's not. But when you read that, like in the UK, the COVID levels are the highest they've ever been.
Yeah.
But I guess the silver lining is not as many people are dying. Marco,
yeah, but I mean, not to be a pessimist. But friends of mine who got COVID, like in March, April, May of 2020, are still having, like, they lived, they didn't die, but they're still having serious physical neurological lung heart issues.
Yeah.
And my concern is, like, yes, they, like with Omicron, there's it's 7 times more transmittable. It seems to be resistant to the vaccine, but it's lighter, so it won't kill you. And it's like, okay, that's great, but part of my concern is, like, what are we going to see in terms of long-term health damages?
Yeah.
To people who've recovered,
and they don't know. I mean, a friend of mine who's a doctor I work with, an ER doctor, his daughter, 17-year-old daughter, had that enlarging myocard park. I don't know what it is. But her heart enlarged.
Yeah.
And they were able to bring it under control, but they don't know what the long-term effects of it are.
Yeah.
And it's, on one hand, because it's unfortunate that it was politicized early on, that information was being thrown about willy-nilly, and people said one thing, and then it was, nope, well, we need to do this or need to do that, and it's unfortunate that we're in the situation that we're in now. Marco Lanny sent in a super chat and says, oh, Marco, I once lent The Hunger to this girl I liked in school, not knowing what kind of a film it was. I told her to watch it with her folks. It's safe to say they weren't happy with me.
No.
I don't know. I don't understand.
Your, trip real quick there.
Why wouldn't anyone love a movie that has an incredible love scene between Susan Sarandon and Catherine Deneuve?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there have been two more beautiful pairs of breasts in any movie ever.
No.
What's wrong with that? Oh, wait.
It is phenomenal.
In school.
It was so I actually saw The Hunger when I was at art school, because we would have in the dorms, we would have movie night, and they would go into Vidiot's and rent whatever, and so someone decided that they should rent The Hunger, and we were all very appreciative of that.
Well, that movie it's still very cool. I mean, it's funny now that people understand it more, but I remember when it came out, people were perplexed by it. You know, the reviews are like, this is so murky. Because the quick editing, the snippets of Marion Blaylock's past in ancient Egypt was just not understood.
I've always here's the thing. Back in the days when VHS cassettes cost $170 or whatever the fuck they were.
Yeah.
Like, that was the one that I actually bought on VHS.
And it came in that oversized box. The original version, where the MGM box where it sat inside. Yep.
And I love that movie. I still think it's an incredible, the love scenes aside, like the aging of David Bowie.
Oh, I mean, Dick Smith, his makeup has never been. You lied. And Bowie is so good in that.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's I love The Hunger, and it's funny because I have the same French. Talk about Brian Fuller. He has a Hunger, the French Hunger poster, which has in French it says they need love and blood in order to survive. Yeah. And Catherine Deneuve's on the ground with the dead guy, and David Bowie's standing up there. I mean, and even that trailer, the voiceover, it's like the cruel elegance of David Bowie. I mean, that's everything about The Hunger is great.
Yeah, it is.
And it's funny because they keep talking about. I mean, they did the series, but they keep talking about remaking The Hunger. Yeah. And there's that other book. I mean, Whitley Strieber wrote the sequel book. Actually, he wrote
a sequel to it.
I think he wrote two. He wrote two sequels, I believe.
Wow.
And I have them, but I've never read them. But I have them.
I'll tell you what film I desperately want to make, and you'll appreciate this. This is the only. I was actually asked by a friend, like, okay, so you're so pretentious arty guy now. You're done with genre films. Like, would you do a Marvel film? And I said I don't think I would, honestly, because I don't think it would be a very satisfying experience. That said, if MGM said, "Hey, Mr. Hosley, would you want to do Logan's Run?" I would pull out my very dog-eared copy, and I would love to redo it going off of the book now that you could actually do the set pieces that are in that book, because I think that a adaptation that hews more tightly to the book would completely floor everyone.
Well, and if you kept the age 21.
Exactly.
You know.
Well, and here's the thing. It's like I think honestly, it's even more. You know, we're talking about this change of culture. You know, and this idea that you know, historical context isn't necessarily important anymore. We can just do away with that.
Sandman,
right.
Leave my door. Don't come back here anymore.
There's so many things that that I think echo really true. As much as, if not more, honestly, than when Nolan, did the first version, or with, um, so yeah, I would absolutely love to.
Well, it's funny. I think Logan's Run might be the. Rantz will come back. Come back, Rantz. The link is still there. Let me disconnect you. Just come back. Just reconnect. There you go. I don't know why you disappeared. I was just gonna say, Logan's Run is probably one of the things, because it's over at Warner Brothers. Logan's Run's at Warner Brothers, and when Bryan Singer was making Superman Returns, when we were in Australia, there was a little room, a little secret room off the soundstage that the Daily Planet set was built on. This unbelievable set, the Art Deco Daily Planet, and there was a group of previs artists prevising he was going to do Logan's Run based on a Christopher McQuarrie script.
Okay.
And they basically previs the whole movie, and it never got made because it just didn't. And I liked what they were doing. In their version, the entire movie took place in a Babylon 5 Gundam side space habitat, an orbital space habitat, a giant. So it when you went to the center, it was in zero gravity, and the Sandmen like floated around on these. It was actually very cool. It was different, and the opening scene was a scene with carousel, and it shows people like in the original going up and when they explode, but in this, when they get to the top, it shows that these mechanized, these machines come in and they grab the runners once they've been exploded out, and they take their bodies and they put them on these conveyor belts, and these machines come down and completely strip away layer by layer of these bodies and recycle them for the colony. And it was horrifying and awesome. And the problem was it didn't have an ending. It didn't have a great ending because you where are you going to go? Like, you're in a space habitat, and then the people realize, oh, we're in orbit around Earth, in sanctuaries. We get to go back to the planet. It was good. I mean, Nicholas Winding Refn wanted to do it. They've spent so much money on Logan's Run. I'd love to see it done because the book's still great. The original William F. Nolan, George Clayton Johnson novel is still great.
It's so good. It's so good.
I have a script I have a version of that Richard Maybaum, the James Bond screenwriter, wrote for George Pal in I want to say it's dated 1967, like right when the book came out. And it's I'll find it and send it to you. I've got it somewhere here. It's crazy because it's done as almost like a parody, and they're trying, like, Richard Maybaum was like middle-aged. He's like, well, and they're like, it's kind of like what Lindsay Anderson's If was, but it's in the future. It's there's a note explaining what it is, and I'm like, that's so crazy.
Oh my god.
Oh, it's amazing. That. It's amazing. But so let me ask you this though: the experience of finally getting to mounting your first film, your directorial debut, at least in live action. Looking back on it, what did you learn? What were your takeaways from the experience?
The thing that, so because I started as a storyboard artist. My first professional creative job was being a storyboard artist for a direct-to-video film called Motown's Mustang that was celebrating the 25th anniversary of Motown and the 25th anniversary of the Mustang. And basically you followed a Mustang as it rolled off the assembly line in 1950, all the way to 1985. or in 1960 to 1985, whatever the timeline was, while these Motown songs followed along through the different eras as the car finally ends up in a junkyard. It's recovered and restored, and all this thing. It's fine, but it's like it was a very weird project. But like that was that my so the person who was the creative director for it grew up in the town where Brian Fuller and I grew up, and his sister was a teacher along with my mom. And so, like in 8th grade, he came back to visit, and he had his portfolio with him, including storyboards for The Thing. And his first job was working on the set dressing for the big final Roy Batty scene for a Blade Runner.
Wow.
And so like as an 8th grader, like my brain is snapping.
Yeah.
Because it's like, wait, this is like the holy grail, and it's possible from here to get to there. So when I came down, and he showed me what storyboards were and gave me a script for a project that he was working on, and said, why don't you try and do these 3 scenes as storyboards? And he had the patience to look at my storyboards and tell me what I was doing right, what I was doing wrong, and I figured that was that. And then when I went to go check out art schools the summer after my sophomore year, he said, well, so can you stay for a month, and I'll pay you, money to do these storyboards.
Mm.
And I was like, fuck yeah, are you kidding me? God. So I did storyboards for that, and that in turn, the producer on that was also the producer for Aerosmith's "Dude Looks Like a Lady" video 3 years later. And he called me up and said, hey, you still doing storyboards? And I said, hey, if you're paying. And he said, hey, here's an address, come. It's an Aerosmith video. And so I went and met Marty Kullner, who was the director of music videos in the 80s. He did everyone from Cher to Whitesnake to Scorpions to Kiss to, I mean, now moved on to like his current project is doing the Hard Knocks series for HBO. But Marty looked at my boards and he was like, these are fucking great. All right. And I became his go-to guy for a while on that. So like my entire training was like in storyboards. Like that was my gateway into film. And so when I approached the short film, like that was actually the thing that got my DP on board, because I spent a lot of time looking for the right DP, because I had a very specific vision of how I wanted it to look. And I always joke that it's like I wanted a quarter cup of Malik, but only a quarter cup.
A quarter cup of Malik.
Yeah.
Love that.
Never go full of Malik, you don't want dinosaurs popping up in the middle of your third act.
Although, come on, man, Tree of Life, that Criterion Director's version's pretty great.
I love Tree of Life, but like I understand why people have problems with it.
Yeah, of course.
And it's the same thing with New World. I think New World is an amazing film, but
I love New World.
I understand why people have problems with it, because I love the ability to use environmental interstitials to evoke emotion.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, you have to be very careful in doing that, so that you do not lose, so that you maintain the emotional pull on your audience, and you keep your narrative thread as a line. So I think like in modern filmmakers, Chloe Zhao does a really fantastic job with that, of being able to, like with Songs My Brothers Taught Me, I think that she's incredible at being able to use that as an environmental motif and pulling you into the emotional reality of these people without having to say a bunch of things.
Yep.
And it's a hard line to thread, but so it's like and Malick is a master. So, but this is my first film, and I don't, the last thing I want is someone going like, well, he's off in the weeds there.
Yes.
So quarter cup of Malick, a little bit of Kieslowski, a little bit of
Nice.
Malick.
Which Koslowski?
Three Colors Blue is my favorite film
All right.
of all time. I love No End. I love The Double Life of Veronique. But
I'm a big Decalogue fan myself.
see, I haven't seen Decalogue.
Oh, you need to see Decalogue. I mean, Decalogue's 10 movies, but you got to see them.
So I bought the Criterion release, and I'm saving it because it's like I think it's the last of Kieslowski's stuff I haven't seen.
Oh.
So I'm kind of like I like the thing I love about Kieslowski stuff is every time I've seen something for the first time, it's just a revelation.
He's one of my favorite directors, and you're gonna love the Decalogue. It's almost like a moral Twilight Zone. I mean, the Twilight Zone's moral, but based on the Ten Commandments, it's very interesting. You're gonna love it.
I love it.
You're gonna love it.
So the as a result of this, the DP was very important. And my friend Alex DeCampi at one point said, have you found the cinematographer? And I was like, no, I'm looking for someone who's got a quarter cup of Malick, maybe a half cup of Kieslowski. This is what I'm looking for. And Alex is just about as picky as I am as a creative person, and doesn't isn't very willing to I guess that'll do kind of thing. And she said, well, I have this person you need to talk to, and she introduced me to Jindra Jarnigan, who's real. I looked at it and I was like, oh fuck yeah, immediately, because everyone else was like, I was saying, I guess that could work. I guess that kind of But I was like, oh shit, this is great, and I had started doing storyboards because the opening shot is an insane shot. We start on it's a continuous dolly where we zoom out from an extreme close-up on the lead's face to where we zoom out, and then we do a 180 continuous pivot, and it's a continuous shot, so then you see over his shoulder and the into the room and what he's looking at, and his father and this biker engaged in this conversation. And it's very much a influenced by computer graphics kind of thing, right? But it's done as a practical shot, and I knew that I needed someone really, aside from the stylistic stuff I knew, so I had boarded out that sequence. And when I approached her, I said, here's the script, here's the boards that I have done so far, and so when we talked, she was like, so this opening shot, and I said, yeah, I know it's really fucking ambitious, and I understand I'll probably have to get rid of it. She's like, no, that's the one we need to get that shot. We need to figure out, if we have no choice but to cut it, we'll cut it, but let's try and figure out how to get that shot. So that was, we were like, yeah, let's do this.
Nice.
So the boards, everything was boarded in really exacting detail, and we had broken it down as an animatic, and so I was shooting to what I thought was the cut. I had the edit very clearly in mind.
Yeah, but you should always give it a little bit of time. Let it run a little long.
But I had that bit of advice, always let it run.
Yeah, a little bit.
Which I was very grateful for. But the thing that was interesting to me that was the revelation out of it, first of all, having everything boarded out and having a really great AD and DP was phenomenal. The AD I had was also the AD on Mass, which is now in Oscar contention as one of the films that's getting a lot of buzz for Oscar stuff. And the two of them were so phenomenal, and we had such a fantastic crew because the AD and the DP define what the nature of your working environment is. You as the director try to, but really they're the ones, leading the crew. And if the three of you are working well together and the three of you are keeping your cool and like having this be a thing where everyone's excited and happy and seeing what this can be, like, to me, that was the positive thing of learning through the process.
Love hearing that.
The one thing that really struck home in the editing process was there were shots where I was just like, Jesus fucking Christ, why did I spend 3 hours on that shot? Because we're not going to use it.
Yep.
And there were also things that I was just like, oh my God, why don't I have a take from this angle instead? Because that would be better.
Yep.
Cutting from there to there to there to there.
Yep. I know.
So that's and I was assured by the editor and the DP and everyone else is like, there is not a director that does not have that experience.
Nope. Everyone does.
And I was like, okay, that makes me feel better, but it also is like, as a control freak, it was a little hard to like, oh my God.
No, but see, that when you get in the edit bay, I know that's what you think, and you beat yourself up, but you shouldn't.
Yeah.
You shouldn't.
Yeah.
Now, this is going to be a total off-the-wall question. It is now December 19th.
Yeah. Tomorrow's my birthday.
Tomorrow's your birthday?
Yeah, tomorrow's my birthday.
Well, happy birthday.
Yeah.
Well, today, December 19th, is another birthday.
Okay.
Today is the 20th anniversary of the release of The Fellowship of the Ring.
Okay.
20 years ago today, the movie came out. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, do you have any are you a Tolkien fan? Do you have any thoughts about the trilogy? It's a fan favorite, obviously. I think it's one of the great, in terms of literary adaptations, one of the great achievements in cinema in terms of translating a book to a movie. And don't throw Tom Bombadil back in my face. I understand he's not in it. But, hey, so what do you think? Do you have any thoughts on the 20th anniversary of Lord of the Rings?
I do. I agree with you that I think that it's probably too... Well, we'll see what happens with Dune in the second part.
Yeah.
But I think that it is... I think it is absolutely a high watermark in terms of adapting a classic piece of beloved literature, which is a thankless fucking job. Let's just be clear.
Yeah.
Like it's the same reason. Like my life was changed with Star Wars.
Yeah.
But like if Lucas film came to me, Disney came to me and said, "Hey, we want you to do a Star Wars film," my answer would be, "I don't think so," because that is a thankless job. Because here's the thing, if you do what needs to be done with Star Wars, no one's going to be happy, and if you do what they want, they're not going to be happy. So it's just it's yeah. But that aside,
well, I do think Favreau and Filoni. What I find interesting about I don't think that Disney brass quite understands what Favreau and Filoni are doing. Mm-hmm. Like how they're mixing and matching previous, like they're borrowing, like the Grand Admiral Thrawn will show up and Ahsoka Tano will show up and they'll do. Yeah. I am sure the brass is like, we don't quite know what they're doing, but it's working, so whatever. Yeah. We don't need to understand, and they're going to get away with murder. Yeah, murder.
Yeah, it's the same thing that it's Favreau's same model they use with Iron Man. It's like you take IP that you figure like, no, they're not gonna squawk about this because it's not Luke,
right?
So you get to do something with it. You get to do what's right by it, and you resonate with the fans, and there you go.
In the meantime, I haven't heard anyone mention Yoda. It's all Grogu or the child or whatever. Yeah. It's amazing, and while I'm not convinced that shooting movies and TV shows using their stagecraft technology, as people point out, there's a lot of walking around. Like they walk down, like this. In the first season, I was like, okay, so the Mandalorians live down one street, and then there's this bar where the Imperial officers are at.
3 blocks.
Yeah, a couple blocks down. I'm like, whatever. But it's going to be really interesting to see if. No, I don't know. Lucas was developing that live action. They had 50 scripts, written about the Star Wars underworld or whatever. Yeah. And I'm wondering
if there was that massive multiplayer video game that two friends of mine were working as creative leads on, and it was fucking batshit. And supposedly a bunch of that stuff has gotten now moved into the TV universe.
Yeah, like I mean, the
We'll
Book of
see.
Boba Fett, the whole underworld, which I think is great.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. It's just I hope it's not. There's visual effect shots like flying ships, and then a lot of walking.
Yeah.
It's just
I think that, well, here's the thing. Part of it is I think adapting to there's using new technology. I mean, you know this from a CG standpoint.
yeah,
There is the initial gimmick run of it, like, wow, that's cool. And then there's actually understanding from a creative narrative vision standpoint, like, what can we do with this? And whether or not you like Cameron or not, like James Cameron has been brilliant at understanding, like, oh, how can I utilize this technology, whatever the emerging technology is.
yeah. I mean,
in
he's
a
done the
way-
R&D for the entire industry for the last 30 years.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing, he's done the R&D in a way that shows very clearly, here's how you can tell a story with
Yep.
this, as opposed to it's just gimmicks and flash. But back to Lord of the Rings, speaking of R&D and technology. So the first film, I completely, I love all the films, but like, I went to Game Developers Conference right after the second one had come out, right after Two Towers had come out, and Peter Jackson was supposed to be the guest of honor speaking he's supposed to give the thing, and Peter was busy with Return of the King, and so he sent John Labrie, who was the CTO for Weta,
Yep.
and one of the co-founders of Weta at the time, and so at a bar after that night, I buttonholed John and introduced myself, and we started talking, and he's been a friend of mine ever since. So it's like I got to have all kinds of interesting insight to the process of Return of the King. I got to meet Christian Rivers and Bay Rate, and Bay and I spent an enormous amount of time, because at the time I was a creative director in video games. So and Bay was doing the subsurface spline stuff and subdivision stuff for Gollum, and talking about that and how that could be applied to video games. So we spent a lot of time talking about that. And so I mean, to me, it's like Lord of the Rings as a book series, first of all, is probably as deeply wedded in me as Star Wars is, in terms of how much it changed my life.
Wow. Okay.
When I was in fourth grade, Star Wars came out, and my mother did not want me to see it because it had the word war in it. And my father, who was a traveling salesman at the time, had seen it and was like, he needs to see this. And
I'm just trying to make it look like you froze. That was a great way to freeze. Hang on. I don't know why you froze, but come back. Wait, that was a terrible place to freeze, Rantz. I don't know why you froze. I'm going to disconnect you if you can hear me. Come back again. Disconnect, and I'll bring back reconnect. And there you probably are. Hang on. There you go. Wait, now stop.
Yeah.
Your father's a traveling salesman. This was a great story.
I was like, just as we get to the dramatic part here.
And he says he's got to see this.
He's got to see this. And my mom was like, no, it's got war in it. It's going to be violent. We can't do that. So we went down to Boise for a family trip to visit my cousin Bernadine, who lived in this Shirley Jackson style Victorian 3-story turrets and cornices, and just completely out of a haunted house kind of.
Love it.
And she was delightful. And she told my mom, you have to let him see it, because this is the Alice in Wonderland. This is the Peter Pan. This is the fable of his generation. And if you don't let him see it, he will always
Hate you.
Well, she said it would be a loss that he could never make up for.
Right.
Because at the time you didn't have VHS. You had to see it in the theater. And on that same trip, she said, so you like fantasy and you like spaceships and monsters and swords and things. I was like, well, yeah. And so she gave me a hardback copy of the Silmarillion.
I got that. I got that with the fold-out map and all that. It was great.
Which was completely Byzantine and completely indecipherable for a fourth grader.
Oh yeah.
But I wrote her and told her, like, I appreciate this book. I can't understand it. And she said, go to your library and ask for The Hobbit. It's by the same author, and once you read that, you can read the next book, and then you'll understand. And so for me, those two are totally bound together. Like and in a similar way, like both of them just cracked open my brain in like, because I had, I loved Star Trek via reruns. I loved space exploration. My first memory is my grandfather taking me out into the front yard during the second moon landing.
Wow.
As it's playing on their TV, and he picks me up and takes me out and points at the moon and tells me that that's happening up there. And like, that was so like for me, having those two events like as closely tied together, both in terms of the chronology of it and the impact was just like, I think that it's a perfect example of what can happen if you have, and this goes back again to Favreau with Iron Man, because like when you get a filmmaker who loves an original story so much, and you let them run with it, I think amazing things can happen. I think that's also I think we've seen it with Dune is another thing, because Dune's one of those, like, you can't possibly, it's such an interior book.
Right. No, absolutely. And the scope of it, I mean, it's amazing. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, listen, sir, we've gone on for 2 hours and 15 minutes. I want to thank you for this amazing conversation. It's been great having you. I'd love to have you come back and talk more about it. And I'd love, if people can see your short film, we'll definitely promote it here on the channel.
Thank you.
And, which is great. And you are definitely, if I dare say, you are fucking metal, dude. You're fucking metal, bro. Yeah. So I want to thank you. Before I go to bed, though, I'm going to cut this stream short. I'm going to bring on the next part of the show. I'm going to bring on some viewers, some of our crazy viewers. But I want to thank you for being here. Congratulations on, first of all, doing a successful crowdfunding campaign, and then actually making it happen in a short period of time. Because as we all know, being able to do that's the hat trick there. So good, congratulations. And I know your lovely lady Satu. She also crowdfunded a project, did she not?
Yes. So I'm actually. She created an original musical that is an original post-punk musical.
Yeah.
Called King Nigel's Nervous Breakdown. And we are putting up the first run workshop of that on the 14th, 15th of January.
Can people go see it?
It is closed to the public.
Okay.
But I will get you a ticket.
I would love to see it.
Yes.
And maybe, maybe have her come on too and talk about creating that. And again, another successful crowdfunding campaign, and the fact that it's getting done. That's very exciting. Please give her my best and tell her, fuck yeah, man, you did that shit. Good for you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
I'll say this: it's like the thing that came out of COVID. Like we had our respective projects, and the musical was going to be her thing, and I was not. It's like just go, and she was off writing songs, and then after about 4 months, she's like, can you listen to a couple of these and tell me if like you think they're any good? And she played me the first 3 songs, and I was like going, so can I co-produce this?
wow. All
Because
right.
this is gonna be like there's a song that one of the opening songs I said this is going to be the song that every high school kid and every college drama student uses to audition because they're going to feel so seen by this song. It's going to
Wow.
be their anthem. So it's great stuff. I'm really could not be more proud of her.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, give her my best. Congratulations to the two of you for actually crowdfunding and making your dreams happen. You're flash dancing that shit, taking that passion and making it happen. People are like, what? Let's flash dance. I'm like, what can you know? It's Michael Nouri and Jennifer Beals. What can I say? If you don't know, you don't know.
It's got strobe lights and water buckets. That's all you need to know.
That's right. And Michael Cimbello singing Maniac. You can't lose. You cannot lose.
Exactly.
Well, Rantz, this was a great conversation. Come back anytime. It was so great to have you. And I want to wish you happy holidays to you and your family. Stay safe and all of that. And, of course, stay metal. And keep kicking ass. And please keep us informed or just, send me a DM on Twitter whenever you get into festivals so I can, promote it and make it look like you haven't told me. I'll just be enthusiastic.
Thank you, and so you have a fruitful new year, and the best to all of your viewers as well.
Well, thank you so much.
Putting up with my yabbering,
dude. This was awesome, and thank you for coming on to Midnight Metal.
No,
fuck yeah, dude, that was awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I want to thank Rantz Hoseley for coming on. He is fucking metal. Now, as we are wont to do on this show, theoretically, someone said Dieter Bastion's in the chat. I moved Let's Get Physical Media because I am going on Nerdrotic's stream at 11 a.m. about Lord of the Rings. He asked me to go on a stream, so I asked Dieter to start at 9 a.m. I actually have stuff this week. I don't know if Dieter's there, but I'm going to put a link into the live chat and bring you ne'er-do-wells on. I mean, I don't know if anyone wants to come on the show, but if you do, I'm going to put it in. You know what it's like. You can come on this show. If you have a good camera and a good microphone, you're using Google Chrome or whatever, there it is. There's the link. You can come on to Midnight Metal if you want. If you don't, if you're a chicken, if you don't want to be on the show, you don't have to be. But if you want to, choose to do that, we'll see who shows up. If not, I'll just end the show. But I love to see you. You know how I do that. And we have always had loads of fun when people come on. We'll see if anyone... Stephen Ertz, what a feeling. Need to bring energy if you're on the show. You better bring some energy. I mean, you don't have to use Chrome, but usually people who don't use Chrome, it doesn't work. So, I don't know, guys. We'll see. So there will not be any Midnight Metal next week, obviously, because Friday night is Christmas Eve. Saturday night, I don't know, maybe on... I don't know, Christmas Day. Maybe I shouldn't do it, but I don't know where we're going to be. I haven't talked to Dieter about this, but next week on Sunday, the 26th, we could still do Let's Get Physical Media, and I think Dieter and I should talk about our favorite releases of the year. I think that would be great. Well, no one seems to be taking the bait. No one seems to be coming on. No one seems to be logging on, so perhaps I'm just going to end this stream. This would be Midnight Metal episode 71. I can't believe this show has gone on this long. I want to thank Rantz Hosley for being a fantastic guest. I love reminiscing about the 80s and my youth, and I congratulate him for successfully crowdfunding and directing his first live-action short, which looks pretty great. I hope it leads to big things for him. I want to thank all of you for being a part of this community. I want to thank Tom Jr. Jackson for being a great moderator. Brian Hepburn has been moderating. I want to thank all the Blue Wrenches who might be here. I don't know who else is here. I want to thank people for supporting the channel through generous super chats and tips. Thank you so much. And all the people that have memberships to this channel. We had a rollicking fun membership call today. I loved seeing you guys and girls and gentle beings. Hey, wait. Michael Elliott decides to join us. Michael is always up late night. I love Michael. Look, there's dancing. I don't know what to say, Michael. I see dancing things. But it's not coming through. I can't see your picture. I can hear you though. Hang on, I'll see at the last minute. Hang on, I've got to well, it's okay. There you go. Now I can see you. Hang on. You know what? Since you're here, I'm gonna put you on. IOTT. So let me put you in, Coach. Put you into the show because you are here and welcome. Just give me a moment. Give me a moment. It's like Hal. Just a moment. Just a moment. I've just detected a fault in the AE35 unit. Okay. I'll put you in. And the big question. You know what the big question is going to be, right? Well, I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to ask you. So please welcome Michael Elliott. He's been here before. Michael Elliott to Midnight Metal. Michael, how are you?
I'm great, Rob. Good evening, everyone.
You look like Morpheus with the reflection in those glasses.
Yeah, and this and in your honor, let me see if I can. Wait
the red pill and the blue pill. Are you excited about Matrix Resurrections?
Did you see what I did in your honor, Rob?
No.
The arm on one side of my glasses is broken. Yeah, I did that just for you. I had a broken pair sitting off to the side. I said, let me throw these.
I thought
on.
no one. That's why I brought out. I resurrected the sherbet glasses that are too small for my face. Elizabeth buys me these boxes of these cheap glasses, but they're great. They're like $15 for 5 pairs, and I couldn't find. I love the blue ones; those are my favorite. Then I was wearing my second favorite, the horn rims, and now I couldn't find the box with the rest of the 3 glasses in them. So I wore the I wore the broken ones today, and then I couldn't find when I walked the dogs. They slipped off me, and then I had to drag out the old sherbet glasses. But I appreciate that. I didn't even notice. But my God, there you are. But Morpheus's glasses didn't even have. They didn't even have. He just snapped them onto his nose.
Yeah, well, he wasn't as cool as I am. So.
That's that is undoubtedly true. Now let me ask you.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Did you see Spider-Man No Way Home?
Yes, I did.
And
I definitely have to go back and see it again.
Does that mean because you didn't know if you liked it?
It's because when I got home and I sat back and I thought about it, I went, there's so much dialogue that I really enjoyed. That the exchange. Well, like I said, we're not going to do any spoilers here, or can we?
No, I spoil the shit out of it. I think most of the people I think it's okay because we talked last night's Midnight Metal was a total 4-hour spoiler conversation.
Oh, that's true. I keep forgetting you. Yeah, that's right. Well,
so I would say this before you say anything.
Okay.
If there are people that have tickets to go see it tomorrow, or you haven't seen it yet and you don't want spoilers, or you live in Norway because you've been clamped down or something, maybe now is the time to bow out. But
and something I can give some insight without really giving a whole lot of the meat away. It doesn't have to be that way. But what I wanted to say is that I so much enjoyed the conversation between the three Spider-Men.
Oh, dude, that was the
The
yes.
relation. Oh my God, I loved it. So the writing for this movie, it's one of the best, I think, examples of writing for a Marvel movie that I've seen.
No, it
Almost
was
out
it
of
was
all.
very clever. It was very
It was
clever.
so well written, man.
Yeah.
And the fact that they gave, respect to all three, there was no animosity between any of. I mean, it was just beautiful. It was
I thought
so
so
beautiful.
too. I,
Oh,
I I totally agree. And it was interesting to go to a film. It's funny. I do feel that both. I mean, Spider-Man: No Way Home was pretty epic, but I gotta hand it to Marvel because I thought Shang-Chi was a lot more entertaining than I thought it would be. Like the relationships between Aquafina and Simu Liu were great, and I was surprised at how much I liked the entertainment value there. But it's the character interplay that makes these movies, I think, so enjoyable. In addition to the stakes, and I mean, in terms of Eternals, I think I loved Eternals, but that might be because Gemma Chan is like Dream Girl Central for me. I'm like, oh my god! And when you see her in real life and listen to her talk, I wish Gemma Chan would just do ASMR videos and just like read me stories
wow.
because
Yeah.
that would be like the greatest thing ever. But that's not going to happen. But or maybe it will because dreams can come true. But I do think that the character interplay in this movie, I mean, it's epic in terms of its when you think about what they actually pulled off. It's not just the Spider-Man, which is great, but it's also the villains to get. I can't even imagine. I want somebody to write. I was saying this earlier. The definitive story about how this movie got made. Because my friend Cliff Stevenson writes in and goes, I can't even believe this movie exists.
Yeah.
I mean, the agents, the deal making. I mean, I can't even imagine like Willem Dafoe's agents like, wait a minute, what? They want you to what? I mean, you're like getting Academy Award nominated. I mean, and then Thomas Hayden Church, what a MVP or Rise Eye fans, coming back and doing one shot as the Lizard or whatever. It's just good for you guys. I mean,
Yeah.
And even Jamie Foxx, Academy Award winner Jamie Foxx, didn't have a big role, but he comes in and he comes to play, and it's like he didn't have to do that, but it's cool that he did.
Yes. I might have to give something away here. I've got a speculation. I'm not exactly sure if it's going to play out. Oh boy, what is Spidey's friend?
Ned,
Ned.
MJ.
Yeah, Ned. I'm wondering if they were foretelling his future. Now, you remember there was that thing that happened. He said
He's got
something
magic
about-
in him, Michael. He's got magic in him. His
But not
family,
only-
his family has a history of magic.
But not only that, it's been revealed that in the other universe, Spider-Man's best friend turns against him.
Yeah,
So now, if a spell has been put over everyone, and nobody quite remembers Peter Parker, can something happen that gets in between Ned and Peter Parker that turns Ned into the Hobgoblin?
Dude, if Ned becomes the I think they're definitely thinking along those lines because I think that would be great. He's a great performer, and I would love to see. I mean, Ned has a villain turn, a heel turn. Come on, I'd love it.
I'm wondering if those were little clues, just to even bring that up. Hey, in the other universe, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out.
The real question is, does Tom Holland does he get Gwen Stacy? Now that he had to let MJ go, now they bring in Gwen Stacy, and what happens there? I have to say, one of my favorite moments in the movie was when Andrew Garfield redeems himself by not letting Gwen Stacy die by saving MJ. I love that. I love that.
I mean, there was so many moments you just had to hold back tears.
I know.
So many moments. And of course, Willem Dafoe. Wow.
He was great.
As usual. I mean, I didn't expect anything less.
No,
You know,
I mean,
he always
it's funny
comes,
because people
you
are like,
know,
"Wow, the movie's 2.5." I would have watched another hour of that movie.
oh my God. I could have watched the whole movie just of the 3 Spider-Men hanging out, doing
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. I've always said that after I saw Avengers: Age of Ultron, I'm like, I want to see the Avengers, my dinner with the Avengers, like my dinner with Andre, where you just hang out at a party with the Avengers. Like they should have just extended that scene and turned it into a movie or released it as a secondary thing. Like on now it's Disney Plus. Just give me the Avengers party movie where they're in Avengers Tower. Well, it's not theirs anymore, but they just start hanging out and they have these they have these existential conversations. Yeah,
Fat Thor's there.
yeah, he's there at the buffet. You know, and I love to see that because we love these characters so much, and now there's more. I do think they should do. You know, you shoot the whole thing. You build one set where they're just at a party. They're at some dinner party, and you now with all the people that you get you know our new Hawkeye, and you get all the new characters and bring them into it's a party.
Call it Spider House.
I mean, whatever you want to do, and then you can actually bring in real celebrities like Justin Timberlake, who's Justin Timberlake, and he's there like hanging out, like and Topher Grace will do it. We have Topher Grace come in and it'd be great. You have the 3 Spider-Men there, like they figure out how to traverse. I mean, it'd be great.
Yeah,
I'd love it.
it would be fantastic. Yeah, so I do want to go back and check it out a second time because, like I said, I enjoyed so much the dialogue between the 3. I just want to see them do it again.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
no, for sure.
But I wanted to jump on here real quick, Rob, because I wanted to jump on your articulate. I can't always
Fully articulated.
Yeah. I was right in the middle of my exercise regimen, and I was watching you and Dieter, and then all of a sudden, all right, I'm going to bring somebody on to show some figures. I went, damn it, I can't break my routine. So I didn't jump on it. But briefly, if I can, and I always come to play.
I know.
Can I show you some figures?
Of course. Bring it on, sir.
And the funny thing about it is, I guess the number 7 I've been lucky with. And I've often said that I try and be patient because I don't want to have to pay the prices for first release. And if I can get them for cheaper, I wait for the clearance. So anyway, there were a couple of three figures that were hanging in Target for months, and they never went anywhere. And they started out at $25, and they're McFarlane figures.
Ooh.
And I said, no, I'm going to wait. And I went back, I scanned again, a few weeks later, and it was down to $17. I said, no, I'm gonna wait. And then just a few days ago, I went back into Target. They've been hanging there for months, Rob. $7.49. I got.
Wait, bring it over by your face, close to your face, because there we bring it close.
I'm trying to work this camera out.
No. Just bring it closer and keep going. Yeah, there you go.
From Dune.
That's Jason Momoa, right?
Yes, and Rob.
Duncan, Idaho.
It instantly jumped up on my list of one of my favorite pickups of 2021. The amazing amount of articulation that you can do with this figure. Todd McFarlane has really ramped it up. Don't sleep on this, folks. If you can get to Target, hopefully you can get a discount like I did from $25 down to $7. Rob, this is a joy to pose.
Yeah, no, that's and that you've posed it well. I mean, did you get the whole, is that the line that has the Build-A-Figure?
Yes.
So you can get the Baron Harkonnen figure.
And then I got
Lady Jessica
once
nice
again. And see, the thing I like about this particular line is that the joints are so stiff. I can have her running on that stand with a leg up.
Yeah, that's
she
cool.
Will not fall over. And then the Fiesta Resistance. This really, I wouldn't really call it a fully articulated piece because it only the shoulders only move and the wrists only move, but was $40, and I got it for 11.
Wow.
Baron Harkonnen.
Yeah,
And
look at
look
that.
at the size of this monster. It's
No.
a monster, Rob.
What is it? What is the scale on those? Is that 12? Are those 12 scale figures?
This is on the box it says 12 inches, but I don't know if it's regarding because it comes with an amazing stand.
Right.
And I had to use this one. I created this stand because the one that they created. Hold on. Great base and all. Okay.
Wow, look at that.
Problem is, I can't get this ball up his ass. It's too big.
That's what she said.
Yeah. And so I took, I turned him upside down. I positioned it where the hole was, between his legs. I took a hammer and tried to beat this damn thing in him, and I can't do it, man.
Did you use any lube?
Not yet. I was thinking about
So, when you're trying to get the ball up the ass, it's always a good, I prefer Astroglide or Wet.
Well,
try that.
I didn't want to get any lubricant, up in the grooves and stuff. But
just make sure it's not corrosive to plastic.
Well, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sand the ball, slowly sand it down until it.
Well, only we could take this conversation about action figure stands into such dark territory so quickly.
And one more thing to show you. I love when I find figures that either aren't like current mainstream. This particular figure actually came out, I believe it was 2013. Do you have Ollie's in California?
No.
Ollie's it's an outlet. Folks, if you look out in your area, find out. Rob, if I were you, well, then again, you don't buy the smaller figures, but they have all kinds of other stuff in it. But Ollie's every once in a while will have Marvel Legends hanging in there, and you can even find NECA. I found NECA. This is really cool. This is from 2013. This is Damian Baird.
Wait, bring him back. Bring him closer.
Yep.
There you go.
There we go. Oh, wait a minute. Camera's getting a little funky here. Anyway, I don't know if you can make that out.
Yeah.
But once again, this has a ton of articulation. And for 2013, Rob, okay, here we go.
How about that?
My camera. Yeah, my camera. I don't know if on my end I'm coming up. But the beautiful, the detail, and they do extreme weathering on the figure. I just got a new camera, but for some strange reason, I'm not getting any love. But it is so cool. He's got visor and everything. So what I did was I put him. If you can keep me up high here, I got him standing over, and he's looking at these little figures.
Yeah.
It's like he's a giant in a little world, and he's talking with them and shit. Hey guys, blah blah blah. So yeah. So. Once again, I say I'm not going to buy too much, but they just keep piling up.
Well, there's great stuff. I mean, what I got today? I got a figure, and I got two. I got although I think one's a mistake. I used points, so it didn't cost me anything. But I got the Spider-Man black and gold suit.
Yes,
the Hot Toys figure, but it's not accurate because I don't think they knew what it was. I don't think they knew it was up. Maybe they did. And then I also got the Exo. My new favorite toy company is Exo 6, and they make the 6-scale high-end Star Trek action figures. They've put out Data and Picard have been their releases so far. I got their Janeway today.
And they're the same ones that's going to do the Mirror Spock, right?
Yeah, same, which is insane. And Mirror Spock's supposed to come out in March. Because of the Chinese New Year, but apparently Exo 6 is going to release 14 figures in 2022. I'm really looking forward. They do a fantastic job if you're a Star Trek figure fan. So,
oh my god,
good stuff.
I if I were in the 6-scale world, that Mirror Spock would be a definite.
Oh man, it's so.
Wow.
I mean,
did you?
What?
There is a. Well, I don't buy statues, but there's a Hulk statue out now that, oh, Rob, it's fantastic. You gotta see it.
The whole, you know what? I mean, if I went, I love the statues. There's a guy on a YouTuber that I really like named Gem Mint Collectibles. I don't know him. I've never streamed with him before, but I really like him. Been watching him for years. He reviews statues, and he collects omnibuses and reviews statues. Every time I watch his channel, I'm like there's, if I had $6,000, Prime One has done a Godzilla versus Kong.
Oh, like with the full diorama.
Yeah.
Wow,
I mean,
that's the most amazing thing.
If I had $6,000, I'd be like, hey, brah, I'm throwing that shit down. Send me that. I want that. Give it to me. Give it to me now. I don't. I have to move.
You got. That's a bummer too, bro.
No, it's fine. You know, if you don't own, it's always you. Yeah. I mean,
always have a plan B when you don't own. Yeah, I know.
It's and the funny thing is if I was a little bit more successful in my career, people would say, "Well, Rob, you shouldn't have bought as many Hot Toys Star Wars or whatever." I'm like, it's not that. It's like California real estate's really expensive. We found a great place. I'd love to live there, but we got approved for the loan. We don't have the down payment. That's the thing. It's the down payment that kills you. Yeah. Who's got like $300,000-400,000 in their pockets? Not me. I'm an independent filmmaker. I'm lucky if I have 2 cents. It's all good.
To rub together.
I mean, it's you know, YouTube. There's not enough super chats or tips or ad revenue that is going to get you a house, unless you're like Mr. Beast, who has like 82 million subscribers or whatever. And I love his channel, but the yeah, what are you going to do? I mean, but at the end of the day, I can't not buy figures. Neither can you. You buy the figures.
I cannot. I'm in for the long haul.
So with your Morpheus glasses, I mean, look at you can see the live feed right now on right on the screen. How cool does it look look at that. Look at that screen. That's like the frame that you are looking at right now looks like right out of a Matrix movie. I got to ask you. Are you at all excited for Matrix Resurrections, which comes out this week?
No. And
oh man, you just crushed my soul, man. Why you gotta treat me like that?
Well, I think I brought this up to you once before in the past. I was not as blown away by the Matrix when it first came out as a lot of people.
That's fair. It's fair.
A lot of people were blown away at the content and what the message was.
Sure.
And a lot of that message, I think I said before, when the Matrix came out, it was really big into metaphysics. And a lot of what they talked about in that movie really centered on metaphysics and what you think is reality and all those different kind of concepts. So when I saw it, I mean, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed the movie. But for me, it wasn't like this mind-blowing cult classic. Then I saw the second one, and I went, eesh. I didn't see the third one. I think there was a third one, right?
Yeah, there was Matrix Revolutions.
Yeah, I after the second one, I said, I'm done with this. But
there's a great car chase in it.
Well, I'll tell you this. I love Keanu Reeves. I mean, it has nothing to do with him. And I want to see this movie only because this is John Wick. You know,
yeah.
In the Matrix world, they didn't even let him cut his hair, or he probably didn't want to.
Well, I think that's all part of it. I think it's a meta-textual rumination on what does it mean to. I'm looking for. Look, I've got tickets. I'm going to see it. I know it drops on HBO Max, which I have, but we have IMAX tickets for 11:30 Wednesday morning.
Yeah,
I'm going to go see it and then jump on Robservations and review it.
Now, I didn't say I didn't want to see it. I am going to see it. I'll definitely want to see it. Because, like I said, I like Keanu Reeves. And this is kind of, it's not a retelling. It's kind of, it's a pickup from the old one, right? From 3 or elements of 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So no, I do want to see it. I'm just not. Wow, I can't wait.
Yeah. By the way, I got to weigh in. My own moderator, Brian Hepburn, has weighed in. He is listed his top 3 figures for 2021. I would assume that he's talking Hot Toys here because he says number 1 is the Spider-Man upgraded suit, which would be this figure here. This is his number 1 figure. This is not a great pose, but he's got Stark's glasses on.
Yeah, museum style.
This figure is amazing. Comes with a drone. This figure is truly incredible. So, yeah, I would.
Glasses. The glasses really make it too. I love those glasses.
Oh yeah, those are the Stark Tech glasses, and I love this. This head sculpt is amazing. It's really amazing.
Yeah, it is.
So let's just set that up here so it doesn't fall down. Yeesh. So Brian Hepburn says,
so it was
almost fell down. Number 2, number 1 Spider-Man upgrade suit. Number 2 is Mysterio.
Okay.
Mysterio is an incredible figure, and he says number 3 is Batman Beyond from the Arkham games. I have these figures. They're incredible. Those are not bad choices. I would say probably my figure of the year. Well, you know what? I'm not going to say what my figure of the year is because I'm going to talk about it on my. I'm going to do a solo version of Fully Articulated this Wednesday, where I'm going to give my top 10 figures of the year.
I already have my top 10. I'll be there. I want to join you. Well, I don't have to come on, but I want to see your top 10.
Oh yeah, no, I'll definitely. Tom Jr. Jackson, who's one of my favorite people in the world, actually, that I've never actually. I feel like I know Tom, like we're brothers in arms, and I've never sat in a room with him. I don't even know how tall he is. No idea. But I don't know if he's as tall as me, short, whatever. I just know he's a good man. He says he's been a member of this channel for a long time. He's a PGS hero. He says, Rob, awesome show, and thanks for chatting with me during the Zoom chat, brother. Well, thank you, Tom. Tom, I will always chat with you, Zoom chat, and I'll just give you my phone number, dude. Just call me up. It's like I feel like I get to be friends with people. I'm like, why do I only talk to people over Zoom? Like my phone, the only time people call me is bill collectors. I feel like I should give my phone number. Just call me up and say, hey, what are you eating for lunch? No, but Tom's a great guy. But yeah, so this year has been a great year for figures.
Oh, yeah.
I think McFarlane, even their DC line's killing it. And while I'm not a 12 scale figure collector. There's been great stuff, and Hot Toys, they've released a ton of shit that's been really, really good too. And
the third parties, So.
Oh my God, So Toys might be the MVP. I mean the
3-0. What is it? 3-0 or 0-3? Am I getting?
Yeah, 3-0. They're licensed. Their figures are licensed.
They're licensed. Okay.
Yeah, 3-0's licensed. Their stuff's licensed. But I mean, So Toys. I just got a shipping notice for their Rorschach figure from Watchmen at Walter Kovacs.
That's my favorite character.
Dude, that figure is incredible, and it makes me want to get. I might have to get another one because I want the Walter Kovacs head sculpt where he's just holding the sign that says "The end is nigh." He walks through, so he's not Rorschach. He's just Walter Kovacs walking around through and I want to have a. I want to have a whole, if I ever get a 120 Maja case, I want to have all the Avengers up and across the streams and just have Walter Kovacs in the middle with the end is nigh sign.
That would be so cool.
I know. But now I need to get a second So Toys. But they did, the last 6 months they put out Butcher from the Boys. They put out Green Arrow, Stephen Amell, Green Arrow from Arrow. They put out Robin, the Tim Drake Robin, and the Tim Drake Nightwing, and they're dropping Rorschach that is coming out this week.
Now I'll tell you this: if you want to pull me over into 6 scale, I will for 3 figures.
Here it comes.
the Green Hornet, Kato, and the Black Beauty. You want to pull
dude,
me over in the make room
dude,
somewhere for just those three. Just give
okay,
me those three.
you're
and-
talking about 6 scale Black Beauty. That's a little obscure. I would fucking buy that. But hasn't somebody made a good 6 scale Bruce Lee as Kato?
Have they?
I don't know. That's a good
But
question
see,
because
I cannot have Kato without Green Hornet, though. I would not buy it. I gotta have both. I want. What was his name? Van Williams. That dude was killer as Green Hornet. I want him.
yeah,
I
but
want his facial.
okay, yes, you know what? I am right. Enter Bay. Enter
Can
Bay.
you bring it up?
Yeah, I'm going to send you.
boy.
Wow, it's only
boy.
$800.
See, this.
I'm going to bring it up. This is a dope. You know what? Enter Bay is a company that I've been a fan of. But wait, I'm going to throw this stuff up.
No, I haven't heard of them. So
Enter Bay is now they're doing mostly NBA figures. They have a great Once Upon a Time in China. I'm gonna throw this up and put it in because, and they've done Bruce Lee figures in the past. But I need to get a.
listen, if they can do the DeLorean, not that particular company, but if the DeLorean can be done, the Black Beauty can be done.
Yeah, but the problem is nobody even. I mean, not to date you or anything. I mean, I don't want to offend you, sir. But who?
know.
You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about. People are like, "What the fuck?
Would
what?
you buy it?
Oh, dude, I would totally buy it, especially the Black Beauty. Now, hang on.
I don't think it'd be any more niche than a lot of these things that come out.
But you know what? The problem is, it's like, look, if they put out the Burt Ward and Adam West Batman, and they didn't sell. You know, and that's why we're getting the 6 scale Batmobile from. By the way, so here's the Enter Bay. Here's the box for the Enter Bay Green Hornet, and also here is the box with all of their stuff. So I'm just telling you. I mean, it's out there. There's not a great close up of the head sculpt. So, but Enter Bay, that's old school Enter Bay. They did a pretty good job.
Yes, they did. That
But
looked good.
but they didn't do the Green Hornet himself. I mean, obviously because it's a Hong Kong company, they did Bruce Lee. But look, I would love to get that kind of thing. I'd love to get more niche figures, but the problem is people don't buy them. Even main, like RoboCop did not sell as well for Hot Toys, and they did a great job. I mean, I
guess my time is just about over, Rob. Maybe that's it. I don't know.
This Hot Toys Ed 209 is the shit.
It's amazing, man.
It's amazing, but the funny thing about this is this robot is an idiot. So it's like you have it. I mean, I love this figure. I mean, it's great, but what
the articulation is kind of wanky or something.
No, it's pretty great. But in real life, in the movie, this character is an idiot. Like, it's cool to look at. You have 30 seconds to comply. like,
hey, shut it down.
He falls down a flight of stairs.
I
mean, it's as cool as this looks. And by the way, this is the second iteration that Hot Toys did of the Ed 209. It's great. This is a great figure. I mean, the detail's incredible. I love this figure, but it's like I love that Hot Toys made it, but it basically fell down a flight of stairs. It's awesome, but kind of not. It costs a lot of money, and but you can't have, like, people look at it and go, oh, Ed 209. Look, it's got a frown. Here's his face with a frown. He's upset. You know, there's no eyes, but he's frowning.
Useless piece of junk.
But this figure is dope as fuck. I love this figure. You know, it really is.
But it looks fairly, considering how you're holding it, it looks lighter than it. Is there any die cast?
No, but it is heavy. This is a heavy
sure
figure.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's really well done. This figure is the first iteration of this. One of the problems with this figure was this rubber here. It would split.
and like you spend hundreds of dollars on a figure and the rubber splits. You're like, what? Mine never did. I got rid of mine, my first version of it, but this is the second version. It's way better. It's way better. I mean, this figure, it's pretty great.
Cool.
I do love it.
Well, you know, before I bid you adieu, can I throw a plug out?
Of course you can. That's what this is all about.
All right. This plug is not actually for me, although I do have something coming up. It'll be happening the first of the year. But this plug is for SB. And I don't know if he's still in the chat room, but he does a show, or he has been doing a show on Monday night. And I've been fortunate enough to partake in like the last 3 or 4. And he comes on usually around 9 o'clock Central Time, which is 10 my time. So I have to once again sleep a little while so I can make his chats. But I mean his show. But we talk 12 and 6 scale figures. We talk about the latest release of 12 and 6 scale and statues. But we also talk about movies and reviews. A part of his stream this Monday we'll be talking about Spider-Man No Way Home, and also episode 5 of Hawkeye. Spoiler. So like I said, I wish SB was here so he could put like his link or how you.
Well, he's been making figures. I love him. He's great.
Yeah. But I've been really enjoying being on his show. Show him some love if you get a chance. It's S Beam.
He keeps asking me to go on, but I haven't been able to go.
Oh, well, you know, he's working hard to build it up, and you know, I've been, you know, there for a while, kind of helping along. His brother shows up with her. His brother's fantastic. He's a great guy. I seem to be a little more vocal because S-Beam has such a quiet and soothing voice.
Yes, he does. He actually, I listen to him, and I'm like, I love listening to his voice. He's fantastic.
Yes, but yeah, I just wanted to throw a quick plug to one of the Post-Geek Singularity's loved ones.
Oh, he's a foundational member. He's a great man.
Yes.
Well, listen, Michael, I want to thank you for coming on. And
Once again, Rob, I really appreciate it so much.
Oh, are you kidding? It's great to have you. And if I don't see you before then, have a great Christmas. I'm still going to be streaming and stuff all over the Christmas holiday, so maybe you'll come on again. Sure. It'll be fun to have you. It's always great to see you, sir.
My COVID boo is gone, so I've got a little more time.
Well, there you go. There you go. But I will see you later.
Yes. Take care, Rob.
All right. As the prisoner would say, I'll be seeing you.
And happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays to you too, sir. My man Tom Jr. Jackson says, I want a 6-scale Peter Sellers as Inspector Clouseau. Well, Tom, just saying, recently released, there are multiple versions of this figure. There is that version, and there is this version. And there is a deluxe 2-pack of Inspector Clouseau, if that's something you are all interested in. So there you go, Tom. There is an Inspector Clouseau out there. It's a really great figure. It's burning up the charts. It's getting very pricey. So anyway, Tom, that was it. Terrier says, everything Robert says about Discovery is true. What? You like it? You're on the naughty list. Well, listen, as we say on the show, I just want to be clear. I won't be the guy that tells you you shouldn't like something. If you like something, it's good. You should like it. And if somebody is critical of what it is you like, listen to their critical assessment. Don't take it personally. And maybe look at it through their eyes or whatever. I've been trying for 4 years to see what anybody sees in Star Trek Discovery, and I grant them the fact that they like it. But to me, I can't help but feel if you identify with any of the characters in Star Trek Discovery, mediocrity is your middle name. No, I'm not. It's too harsh. But yeah, I think like we were talking, Rantz said something very interesting, and I think this is true. Modern audiences expect their entertainment to reflect them. Like when I was growing up watching movies, I didn't expect to see myself or characters I identified with and said, that's me in movies. I watched movies and I read stories to find people who weren't like me. I didn't want to see myself reaffirmed in the entertainment I read or watched or whatever. I didn't want to do it. That wasn't my jam. I'm like, why would I care? I mean, I don't know. So that was never something that I was interested in doing. So I don't know if Dieter's here. Dieter, I don't know if you got me that we're going to switch up. So tomorrow, kids, or no, today, Midnight Metal is going on now. And if no one else came on, only Michael Elliott, but I'm going to end this chat shortly. I just want to say that I would hope Dieter hears this. We are going to do Let's Get Physical Media at 9 a.m., so in 6 hours from now. And then at 11, Gary Beekler from Nerdrotic asked me to go on to his 11 o'clock stream about Lord of the Rings. For those of you who don't know, today, right now, December 19th, is the 20th anniversary of the release of Lord of the Rings in the United States. So there you go. So it's good, which is great. I mean, I can't believe it. So Gary asked me to come on and talk about it. You know, Gary's a huge Lord of the Rings fan. So who am I to say no? Tardier goes on to say, I don't blame people. They can like what they want. Just saying. But this one guy liked Discovery and now COVID. Terrible. I know. But yeah, it's the whole world. It's like, wow, why? You know, I don't have COVID yet. I've worn a mask everywhere. I use hand sanitizer. I'm pretty careful. It's not that hard, people. Watch me come down with it tomorrow. I'll be like, I'm dying of COVID. You never know. But on that note, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gentle beings, kind souls, wherever you are, however you identify across the 28 known galaxies, well, I love you anyway. Doesn't matter. I don't care how you look, how you feel, what you believe in. You're welcome here as long as you're an imagination connoisseur. And I want to thank everybody for supporting this channel via super chats and tips. And thank you and memberships. Again, a great membership call today. Thank you all for being there. I saw Just a Brown Girl jumped in. You were here for you let your camera show us your beautiful face for just a moment, and then you went away. Just saying. Anyway, so thank you all for being here. Thank you to my moderating staff. Thank you to all the long-term members of the Post-Geek Singularity. We're going to continue this party in a little less than 6 hours. I'm going to go take a shower right now. Then I'm going to go to bed, curl up with the dogs who flop all over me, and then wake up and make coffee in like 5 hours. And then we're going to do Let's Get Physical Media. Then I'm going to do Gary's stream, Nerdrotic's appreciation stream with the Critical Drinker and Mahler and other people. It's going to be fun. And then who knows what the world has in store for all of us as we go into the Christmas week. I want to thank Rantz Hoseley for coming out, for being on the show. I mean, it was great, and congratulations to him and to Satu for making their dreams come true using crowdfunding and actually following through on what they promised they would do. So congratulations to them. Follow them. Find them on social media. It's all going to be great. And what else? What else do I want to say? Everyone's talking about Dave Parker coming back. I hope he does. I want Dave to come back. I mean, I think Saturday night Midnight Metals are Dave Parker and my show. I think you should all peer pressure Dave into coming back, because I miss Dave. Who doesn't miss Dave? I miss him. Anyway, therein ends Midnight Metal episode 71. Thank you to everyone who loves this. It's a great show, isn't it? We're having fun. And on that note, I would say to everyone, remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And on that note, I would say to all of you, have a better night, have a better day, have a better life. We'll see you soon, like in 5.5 hours.